your shield. I am your sword. I know you. Your past. Your future.
This is the way the world ends.
We wanted to create something that stood out from the crowd a little bit.
This is the reveal of the big mystery that Halo and Halo 2 have been driving toward.
Where are we? Who is this? What's happening?
The Covenant have uncovered something that is immense.
It's this gigantic Forerunner structure that just looks huge.
Now that he's looking out over this massive thing, the player's gonna say, what is that?
The other part of the story that's important, of course, is that Cortana is in trouble.
I'll detonate in Emberclad's reactor, just like we did the Autumn's. No, I don't want to chance a remote detonation. I need to stay here.
Cortana has been left away from the chief.
She's in the clutches of the Gravemind.
I will ask, and you will answer.
All right. Shoot.
We don't know what's happened to her since then.
I have defied gods and demons.
We don't know it's Cortana. It could be any sort of bizarre, almost satanic sort of voice.
I am your shield. I am your sword.
Something seems wrong.
I know you. Your past. Your future.
I think the expectation is huge. Everybody I talk to, if you mention Halo, everybody immediate reaction is, how's Halo 3?
I think what is going to strike people is the scale.
That's real stuff way out there. I mean, we pushed it as far as we possibly could push it.
We always wanted to have that epic feel, but due to the limitation of technology, it always fell short.
When you're working in high definition, it's a very unforgiving environment.
Look at the Master Chief's armor. You see cool things about the Master Chief's armor. You see that he's self-shadowing, you see the textures are very high resolution, there's real-time reflection on his visor. But you look closer, you see he's beat up, he's scratched.
He has been through some horrific battle, and we're actually showing that on the Chief this time around.
If people show just a pre-rendered movie, then there's always going to be speculation about, well, yeah, sure, your engine's not going to be able to do that. And I think what we're trying to show firmly is that our engine can do the stuff that we say it's going to do, and it's doing it right now.
What we're building here is our bar for where we're going to shoot for in real gameplay.
It's great. There's 90 guys here. Half of them are artists, half of them are engineers. And it's like oil and water. All the left-brain people and all the right-brain people, and both groups think that they're really the people in charge.
Apparently engineering is quite important.
Oh, of course, it's a science.
I like to draw pretty pictures. So I get to do that, I suppose.
It's all about the lighting. It's all about the you know, the additional detail, the bump mapping. You know, I can't remember all their terminologies, and the Hudahada and the triple specular shields and so on and so forth.
In Halo 3, you have, you know, like entire dynamic range available for you. So, you know, things are bright, things are dark. You have the whole contrast there. For example, the sky. It's a new way of doing our sky, like from Halo 2.
Every now and then, it'll catch my eye still, and then realizing, wow, I can't believe we're able to pull that off.
For the announcement, it's gone really well. It hasn't been as much of a you know, monkey shit fight as it could have been.
Poon would be people make decisions that affect us and they don't really worry about it. Like, oh, it's all right, the sound guys will figure it out at the end of the chain. And we do, always, but sometimes it feels a little like you got shat on a few too many times.
Everyone else is prolonging my part of the job. I'm actually just making it better. So that's how that works.
I think Marty's is pretty diverse in the way that he composes in, the styles that he composes in.
The fanfare is actually a new theme. And I don't know if it's ever going to show up ever again.
At times he's pulling out, you know, Enya. Oh no, I didn't say that. At times he's you know, paying homage to other artists.
There are no monks singing in this. The only hint that I want to give anybody that this is Halo is that I'm going to be in E Dorian. I actually just played an octave on the piano, just straight E's. When I played it back, I realized that it instantly got my attention.
For this one, we had a great session with live orchestra, which is a bit above and beyond what we've done in the past.
Master Chief is coming out of a desert, blowing heat, wind, completely obscured. So I wanted it to sound almost ethereal, just to bring some tension in and then have it open up slowly. The music and the sound is all about the drama. I'm just trying to absolutely score the drama of this moment.
I mean, I think in the end, you're absolutely going to be able to play exactly what you're watching in this trailer.
This is Spartan 117. Can anyone hear me? Over.
Well, we had such a great ending to Halo 2 where Master Chief said, I want to finish the fight.
Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
Which had most Halo players universally screaming and throwing their controllers at their TVs because they didn't get to finish the fight.
Well, I didn't say anybody threw their controller. They might have dropped it in amazement.
You won't just finish one fight, you'll finish all of the fights that you started in Halo 1.
I think we're trying to raise an awful lot of questions about what on earth is going to go on in this game. No pun intended.
We want this to be the Return of the King. We want this to be the final chapter in an epic trilogy.
It's coming, and part of it's already here.
It's going to be cool.
This is the game, this is the engine, this is what Halo 3 is going to look like.
You ever wonder what's up there? Like what? Maybe someone up there was wondering what it's like here. I guess. Do you think we'll ever meet them? I hope so. Don't you? Do you think we'll ever meet them?
Chief.
Anybody help me? Hurry! Pull back now! Have you signed on the chief? Negative, sir. I think we lost him.
Not yet.
lot goes into making a game, and there's lots of experimentation, and right up until the point where it's burned on a disc, every decision is critiqued.
I don't think it's necessary.
Even more.
It's the big door that brings up that other grenade.
When the fans see it, it's already gone through all the tribulations. It's a much more harrowing process than I think most of the fans understand.
Everybody has a different opinion on what drives Halo. It's the art, it's environments, it's the graphics. And the most important part to me is story.
Whether it's a love story between the Chief and Cortana or an action-packed explosion fest, we have to negotiate how we get our stories in there.
We went through a full year of pre-production on this project. The story is one of the first things we sit down and talk about when we go to create a game.
And if the Chief just has his head sort of like reaction to what,
The stories are always created the same way. First off, a group of people agreed that this is the story that we want to tell.
What's going to happen to the Chief? What's going to happen to Cortana? We had been working on this story nonstop, making compromise after compromise because there were a lot of things that different people didn't agree on.
Dude, the story should be about Earth getting destroyed, or let's show the Chief's face. That'd be a really good idea.
Radio for VTOL. Heavy lift gear.
We write the first draft of the script, but it's not great. Man, do I really want to give all this credit to Marty?
I didn't see any shape to this story. Nothing happy, nothing sad, nothing intense.
But a premature firing will destroy the Ark.
It's like, I think it needs more punch.
Unacceptable! Unacceptable!
What it really needs is some death.
You actually want to get to the point where the player goes, well, wait a minute, I've been this character for 3 games. They can't possibly kill me.
By having the reality of death part of the story, it did actually introduce this tone of heroism.
Johnson, sound off.
There's no sense of heroic action if there's no real consequences.
Get out of here!
Something that's really important is that our characters feel real.
Do it.
Is Miranda coming across as strong enough?
Now.
Does the Arbiter have enough vengeance built up in him to really push that sword into truth?
You must be silenced.
But the story that we're telling is the story of a human conflict with an aggressive adversarial species, the Covenant.
One of the keys to the success of the story is we didn't pump a lot of time into figuring out who the Master Chief was and why he was a ghost in the shell. We thought he is a husk. He's a big green suit of armor that you move around.
There's something good about having the Master Chief essentially be a blank slate. That helps each individual person connect to the character.
You found me, but so much of me is wrong.
The main personal relationship you have in the game is with an AI called Cortana.
I do know how to pick 'em.
At least one of our writers refers to her as your girlfriend.
Cortana's every girlfriend that we've ever had. No, just kidding. She's your little guardian angel.
Got an escape plan?
Thought I'd try shooting my way out.
Cortana plays a huge role in the fiction of this game, and we didn't want people to forget about her.
No, I don't want to chance a remote detonation. I need to stay here.
By the end of Halo 2, the Chief is separated from Cortana for the first time.
After I'm through with truth.
They'll make a girl a promise.
If you know you can't keep it.
You need to constantly remind players of what they're missing, that this thing is something worth going after. But if it was just a straight, now go find her, here's a map, people wouldn't care.
Chief, it's not safe. The Gravemind, it knows I'm in the system.
Having that moment where you actually see her with the Gravemind fighting for her existence,
Oh.
it was just a really powerful idea for us.
Hurry, Chief. The Ark. There isn't much time.
In Halo 3, we're obviously picking up where Halo 2 left off. The Covenant have occupied Earth. Humanity is sort of down to its last defenses.
The elites and the brutes are destroying everything that the Prophet of Truth doesn't.
All of the Halos are primed and ready to fire.
The Flood is out, and who knows where they're heading. An unstoppable, voracious parasite.
You have nothing going for you at the beginning of Halo 3, except for you.
This is as big as it gets.
In games, it's always this fundamental trade-off between immersion and drama.
Wait! We really tried to create this nice, tight, woven mesh of fiction and gameplay.
It's a balance between telling the story and letting the player have their own story.
Is it more satisfying as a player to kill Guilty Spark yourself, or to see the Chief do it in cinematic? But as soon as you make that decision, you're taking that action away from the player.
Figuring that out is really the challenge of telling stories in games.
When you're trying to balance story and gameplay, one can't come at the expense of the other.
The trick is to weave story into those gameplay sequences without interrupting the gameplay.
We're being a lot more cagey about the way we sneak story in.
There's the Cortana channel, there's the Perspective channel, there's the Letterbox channel, which are the traditional cinematics. All of those work together to tell our story across the entire game.
Perspective channel essentially means that Chief is still going to be in the scene, but it's not a letterbox cinematic, but he's not going to talk, and they're going to be really short, and they're mainly just going to focus on the action.
The event is happening in real time. When you press to skip it, instead of going to the end, that event just continues to happen.
It's just one of those little sort of exploratory moments that players can choose to take part in, or they can choose to ignore.
It feels much more like a story that you're experiencing instead of a game with a movie that comes in every once in a while.
There's certain parts of the story that you tell by having Cortana talking in your ear.
It was the coin's fault. I wanted to make you strong.
The Cortana effect is essentially another story channel that we came up with. Because she is with the Flood, she can sort of give you bits and pieces of, you know, what's going on, but in this really fractured, fragmented sort of way.
Your mission? Could you watch me die?
We also have a separate storytelling method, which we call the Vignettes. It's just a cool little thing where the characters are animated in a very custom way.
You can walk into an environment and you can see a couple brutes beating up a couple Marines.
They're not just standing there looking at the door that you just came through, pointing their weapons at you.
It gives the sense that there's something else greater going on in the story.
One of the things that we've tried really hard to do was make the cinematics directly related to what you just finished doing or what you're about to start doing. In Halo 3, almost all of our letterbox cinematics start with player action.
You must activate.
So it flows really nicely from one gameplay segment into the cinematic and out to the other gameplay segment.
I'm sitting here day in and day out working on the cinematics. And every scene that I make, there's this voice in the back of my head saying, what is keeping the player from skipping this? What's keeping the player from hitting a button and just going right to the end?
Ultimately, it's involving the player and making the player really feel that they're in this story.
You want to establish that this is something a little bit more important.
The story that we're trying to tell has higher stakes. Whether we can do that, we won't know until that thing's in people's hands and they're playing.
Design is about the dance. I love the dance.
It can be a little bit of a fight.
It's always a degree of compromise.
Someone comes by your desk and says, that's just not quite right.
But things change.
You make a cool gun.
Things morph.
The next thing you know, it's a flamethrower.
Things completely get cut.
Once you giveth, and it taketh away.
The design process is not just driven by the story, and it's not just driven by the gameplay.
The development cycle revolves around missions. So at the beginning, when we're concepting missions, you fill it with some sort of challenge.
When I first start on a mission, I will try to get a good high-level set of goals of enemies, weapons, and events. The first phase is repulse the Covenant. And then the second phase, we're trying to have it so the player expands their territory that they have and pushes the neutral and the enemy territory back.
And then the third part of an encounter is what you might call chopping off the head of that encounter. You're really trying to get to the end of the level. There may be a brute chieftain that you've been working your way towards, or a wraith tank.
Once we sort of nail that down at the highest level, we think about what are the cool experiences you can have in that mission with those characters.
2 guys against the player might be tough, but 2 guys against the player when the player has this weapon is suddenly an easy encounter. So now you can put 4 guys in there.
It'd be cool if the Phantom dropped off a sniper jackal.
Yeah. The idea for a mission can start in lots of different places. Sometimes there's some really cool environment that we want to feature.
We had the notion of starting the game in a jungle from the very get-go.
engineering grasped onto, like, that's going to take a lot of cool rendering, and artists grasped onto that and said that's going to allow for some really cool artwork. Design grasped onto it and said that's going to really sell the gameplay on that first mission.
Here is the first drawing of the jungle, the first mission in the game. We tried to indicate that the early areas would be used for basic movement training, and then moving into combat training, then eventually advanced combat where grenades are introduced and the player's introduced to the concept of flanking. From this, we went to an actual whiteboard where a lot more detail was added in.
A whiteboard contains sort of a rough layout and a list of the different sandbox items that are going to be used in that mission.
Then we'll also start listing out more specifics about the encounters, like where the grunts will be introduced or where the phantom is going to come in. From here, we went on to Illustrator, and after that, we went into building the mass outs in 3D Studio Max, and we were off and going.
I would say Halo 3 is more of an offense game. It's all about getting in the action.
You gain yourself more cover, you gain yourself a nice weapon, and that sort of starts tipping the scales in your favor.
Every mission has its own feeling, and you don't just get that sense of, oh, I'm going from room to room and just killing more guys.
What we did for this encounter, for example, is the player can take the primary path, which is straight ahead, and take the Covenant head on, or they can take this secondary path, which flanks around the Covenant. So it feels like the player kind of gets to choose from the beginning of the encounter what type of experience they want.
Having a player feel like he did the right choice is probably one of the most rewarding things you can do in a game.
The state we want to keep you in is this constant state of challenge where you're not succeeding, but you know next time if you just did a little bit better, you could.
Oh, come on, man. I'm not spazzing.
In a single-player game, you have relatively limitless control over the experience of the player.
In multiplayer, it's very much a conflict between live participants that you're duking it out with.
When the map design sort of evolves, it needs to be balanced.
Blue team, what are you doing? Oh, God!
The blue team starts on one side and the red team starts on another. They sort of have an equal arena to play in.
What's a perfect Halo bunker or a tower or a bridge? We're trying to make these ideal little situations, and then from that little situation, put a couple of them together, and that sort of becomes a level.
Design is such a broad concept. Designing a mission could be, I draw on a piece of paper, hey, here's the basic layout. You might take into consideration things like line of sight. You know, you certainly don't want the player to stand at point 1 of the level and see the very end of the level.
We have 2 encounter spaces that can see each other, so all the objects and all the AI are active in both of them at the same time. I'm trying to block them off from each other without completely destroying some of the views that we worked really hard to capture. And when Marcus sees it, he's going to kill me.
We have a bunch of systems for telling exactly where the player is and then triggering some event in front of him.
The purpose of creating these invisible trigger volumes is to let the computer know where the player is. So this is a bird's eye view of the first encounter where the player is actually fighting Covenant in Outskirts. When the player enters from this side, they will enter this first trigger volume that might spawn enemies or cause a ship to explode in the distance. There's a few side trigger volumes where we have some enemies in those areas, and when the player enters this trigger volume, those enemies actually get afraid of the player, and they'll run away. This is how we would make a trigger volume. And let's say, for example, we want some enemies to spawn in this little basin down there. You would place a trigger volume, you can control the scale of it, and you would want to create a nice, clean line that the player can't get around. You know the player is close to the ground, so they can't actually see over the hill, but you wouldn't want them to be able to stand here because they could actually see the enemy spawn, and they'd spawn out of nowhere. So you're always just looking for a line so that the player can't actually see what's happening. The player crosses a bend, they hit the new trigger volume, and that fight ensues.
If mission designers are like storytellers, I give them words like warthog and explosion to tell different stories.
The basic design for a weapon needs to be fun to shoot and fun to be shot at. The shotgun is all about close range, surprising people. Sniper rifle is long range. Spartan laser is about taking down vehicles.
My favorite weapon is the battle rifle.
I'm quite partial to the sticky grenade.
And that 3-shot burst just feels really powerful.
We create situations in which a weapon is going to be the best thing around. But we also do the reverse, where we give you a shotgun, and then the next encounter is going to be all long range, and then all of a sudden you have to find a different solution to the problem.
So for multiplayer, it's really sort of trying to get the weapons placed in the right locations on the map.
Stay in your VIP.
How do I get up there?
In multiplayer, the players are going to do something that you don't expect. So there's a big difference in how you can react with weapons.
You're looking at how you can sort of balance a power weapon on one side of a map versus a different side of a map.
This is actually really, really hard to balance out and make fun every time because the placement is random and so is the weaponry.
On Valhalla, the Spartan laser is placed right in the center of the map so that each team has an equal chance at getting out to the center where you're taking a lot of risk. And once you've got it, then you're really powerful. It's kind of a gamble, but the payoff is pretty big if you're successful.
It was really getting hard to add new weapons because balancing 40 weapons, you're going to feel like you have a weapon that is a clone of another. So the direction that we took is we added a new set of really, really powerful weapons that you don't really keep for a long time.
We've got an entirely new kind of weapon, the turret weapon, where you walk up to a turret and you yank it off its tripod and then you're walking around and you're doing third person.
We just limited the amount of ammunition in the turrets because they're really too powerful.
As new events happen throughout the level, your objectives are often changing, like when the Scarab comes in, for example. You know, it's pretty clear that you've now got a new barrier to being able to complete your overall objective of the mission. In Halo 3, the Scarab is super dangerous. You've got to be smart about how you approach fighting it.
The Scarab was in Halo 2, but it was very scripted.
The way it was actually implemented in the game was boring as hell.
The design was horrible. Like it looked like a basket, like a handle. I'm going shopping. It's horrible.
When you're fighting the Scarab in Halo 2, you had to kill the two guys that were driving it, and then he died in a cutscene. That was pretty cool, but it wasn't part of the sandbox. One of the first things we were looking at for Halo 3 was, let's give it an AI, let's let it move about the environment completely freely, let's make it part of the sandbox.
So we want to make it as interactive as possible.
So not only is this thing trying to kill you and all of your allies, but it's almost its own encounter space. It's up to you to figure out exactly what you're going to do to take out that Scarab. If you don't figure it out, well, you're probably going to die.
The end of Halo 3 is the end of the entire trilogy, and we wanted to do something really awesome for the end.
Explosions!
Yes.
You would took me half an hour. Jump in!
Oh God, no, you're not gonna make it.
You want me to drive?
No, I want you to fix it so that I won't die when I go close. What I was playing was the end in a very unpolished, very rough, very frustrating state.
You've got to build it, you got to play it, you got to say, it's not good, let's try it again.
Every step of the way, you know, I'm going, is this fun? Is it exciting?
As we get toward the end of the project, we're just making smaller changes, tweaking how much damage something does.
We have to make sure that the doorways are the right size.
How's the cover playing out?
We're the ones that have to wire it all up and make it work and make it fun.
Just a little more sped up, I think.
Then ultimately, you might have an encounter that plays great.
Jump off there. Jump off here. You should be able to land.
Oh, so close to making that jump. That's awesome.
Sometimes you stumble on it, sometimes you plan for it, but the most important thing is when you recognize it, that you covet it and that you keep it.
The shipping game is always an approximation of the perfect vision. I like not having to be the one who decides when I have to stop, because I would never stop if I had any choice. And then the game would slip and then we'd all get fired. And even then I wouldn't want to stop.
Every piece of artwork that you see in the game is built by a community of artists.
The dirt on the tires gets there because someone has to put it there. The scratch on the inner side of the fender because a rock might have jumped up and hit it.
Everything that moves in our game, the wheel on the Warthog rotating, the little antenna bouncing up and down like that, the shotgun spitting out a cartridge.
The walls and the light fixtures.
Smoke trails, dust effects, lightning, they flesh out the world, make it feel a lot more real.
The guys that have the biggest burden are the environment artists. They have to build essentially the entire world.
One of the areas we were working on was a warehouse. When it was handed to me, it was a big box. It was a void. We worked to essentially design the overall look.
You have to create a world that a player just wants to get lost in.
These sweeping alien vistas, these giant foreigner spires and green rolling hills and blue skies.
It's a stylized realism.
what's important to this space? There's my exit, there are my places to get cover. That gives us a three-dimensional picture, and we start building it.
We'll get the basic forms in, then we'll do a layer basic lighting, then we'll do a layer basic texturing.
The biggest challenge in front of us was how were we going to convert these assets from Halo 2 into this next-gen HD content.
I don't think there are any developers who are happy that it's a high-def world now. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just a pain in the ass for all of us.
You have to scale up. We need to have 4 times the size of textures, 4 times as much content, just to create the same experience that we had with Halo 1 and Halo 2.
It's a brand new console. What we found was more powerful engine, a lot more work for one artist.
Xbox 360, there's screaming for more detail, so we've got to provide it.
This is one of the things that's going to set apart Halo 3 from Halo 2, just the sheer number of tufts of weeds and grass to sort of help them blend into the ground and the terrain. I know that if there's one out of place, like when the game ships, every time I run by that in multiplayer, I'll see that one blade of grass and I'll be very upset, so I tend to get a little obsessive about it.
Art and design is like almost the exact opposite of each other. I'm always trying to add something that he wants to get rid of, or he's trying to add something that I want to get rid of.
First-person shooters are given a lot of bad publicity because this room's filled with crates.
We'll give him a beautiful environment, perfectly composed, lit, and then he goes, I'm just gonna put a few crates. Don't worry, just a few. Then you got purple crates, and you got the green crates. And then there's, oh, don't worry. These crates are only here temporarily. You're gonna turn them into something really cool, and then you find out so long as it stays exactly the same proportions as a crate.
Our combat rests heavily in the fact that we have a fair amount of cover.
A designer will grab the ugliest crate in the world and go, hey, this is a great place to fight around. And then the artist will come up and go, that's a box, like it's pretty ugly. Here's something cool.
The designer will come in and be like, this is gorgeous, but this is an absolutely awful space to fight bad guys in.
Tell them to drop everything and recraft this.
This space needs to be fun before it's pretty.
Art really likes rolling, beautiful hills and completely open environments, and we're like, what are you gonna do in there? We need to throw crates
Drive the
in.
warthog smoothly. That's
Yeah,
what we
but
do.
for infantry encounters.
Oh, my warthog fell over.
One of the things Halo is really known for is the vehicles. Our vehicles really eat into the dirt and bank into turns and have a lot of mass.
Jamie comes to me with an idea for a brute vehicle that was a little bit like a ride-along lawnmower.
It's called the chopper because it will literally chop you up.
Before starting work on the brute chopper, we discussed the brute.
Look, it has soiled itself.
The brutes are taking a lot more precedence in this game. To give the brutes more depth, they need to have a history too. And one of the ways to show a history is vehicles that they created.
So I look at the brutes, I try to imagine what their home world is like. Maybe they're from a place where they hammer ore and there's lava and magnetism. And I say, okay, well, how do I build a magnetized metallic lawnmower that's fun to drive and shoot people with?
I'm gonna take Travis's yellow and stick it on the chopper because I think it looks cooler with the tone of the metal. But the hover technologies, it's all Forerunner, Covenant, so it's all gonna be like a bluish purple.
You can think of the brutes as building their stuff like in a chop shop. They go in and just tear the crap out of old Forerunner technology.
To me, the brutes look like guys who ride Harleys. They just do. Large wheels, lots of metal, leather. Our concept artist put a canopy on it, but it started to pull away from what we needed gameplay-wise. We want this to be vulnerable as well as brutal. If there was a canopy behind the brute and the brute passed by you, you couldn't shoot him in the back of the head as he went by. We need balance, and the balance is from the front, don't mess with this. From the back, take it away. The complement to this is the Prowler that Travis Brady worked on.
The Prowler is sort of our brute equivalent to the Warthog. I wanted this to look really vicious from the front, sort of like an anglerfish. You see it's got a fin here. The pipes on the inside are like fish gills. If you've seen any Discovery Channel shows of these anglerfish, they're pretty brutal. They have this massive mouth that like swallows you up. It's got sharp blades, it's got teeth. This looks like something you wouldn't want to get in the front of.
If it burns, bleeds, splatters, drips, smokes, or blows up, I'm in charge of it. Every individual projectile needs to be detected against what type of material it impacts. When you shoot, you leave a decal, which is a small bitmap. If you shoot at the same spot enough times, the system has to be smart enough to say, oh, there's already a decal there, don't draw another one. It's a very complex system.
You got more pixels per screen, which means everything takes more time
to create. In Halo 1, we only had one bone in the face, and that was the jaw, and so the jaw would just do this. Halo 3, we're looking at some characters that have over 30 bones, so now we can do some pretty full expressions.
Oh, come on. Impress me. Stop!
Character rigging 101, which is vertex weighting, and that's where you would assign the vertexes on this face mesh to the skeleton. You can grab the face flags and animate them around and get any kind of facial expression you want. Angry emotions on the eyes, slide them up on the mouth.
There's something about modeling someone that doesn't exist that never really translates as well as modeling someone who does exist. There's personality in your face that's just hard to invent. That's why we thought using our heads would be a good idea. There's a whole ton of people in the game. Michael Wu, Marcus, Damian. I've got a lot of asymmetry in my face, so I have to move the nose one way, the eyes the other, and make sure your self-esteem is in check when you start modeling your own head.
The bread and butter of animation is all about bringing emotion to the game. There's this little unsung rule, the 3-5-7 rule. Design is going to want characters striking other characters to be 3 frames long. So quick, responsive, great for gameplay. In 3 frames, that can be a pose from here to the hit, to back, and then to the neutral again. Animation would like 7 frames, get some more character into it. We could potentially have the character stare the other character down, cock his fist back for the first frame. Second frame, he gets even further. Third frame, he gets even further. And then he starts following through on the consecutive frames until he gets to that 7th frame and hits.
10 minutes later, I'm done with my beautiful expressive melee. That's not a game anymore, it's a movie, unfortunately.
Sometimes we have to edit our animations to cater to that, and sometimes we have to edit them a little too much, and it hurts.
Artists are fantastic bitchers.
Some of us are worse than others.
They hate the idea that their art has to be called done.
It's never done, never done.
You just run out of time.
Poor Lee has been doing storyboards for 2.5 years now on the same scenes and reiterating them.
Which idea would you like to keep? And I say, I want to keep all of them. And then when I do make a choice, they say, well, we were joking, there was no choice. We've taken all your ideas away.
There's a scene that's been my favorite scene right from the beginning, and it's truth is death, right? And the truth is kind of fighting, being floodified. The Arbiter's standing behind him and with his sword, and it comes right out of his chest, and we're looking at the front of truth. As a director, I'm really married to, and I really want this shot to happen, and we might have to sacrifice other things.
The artists are always going to take it absolutely as far as they can until some engineer comes over and starts throwing things at them and saying, no, you cannot do that.
We're throwing a lot of things at you, multiple characters, multiple vehicles, weapons.
More polys, denser textures, more detail in the textures.
Making sure that the smoke wisps in just the right way.
Artists tend to think broadly outside the box, whereas engineers dream more in black and white.
Artists conceive of something that goes far beyond what the possibilities are and then strive for that and see how close they can get.
It's all about trying to cram as much stuff in as you can.
Every now and then, it'll catch my eye still. Wow, I can't believe we were able to pull that off.
Games are nothing without suspension of disbelief, of you losing yourself in that environment.
They're creating fantasy world, but even fantasy world has some resemblance to real world.
If water looks like water and rocks look like rocks and explosions look like explosions, then you are engaged in the plot at a much more visceral level.
The way that the engineers and the artists work together is one of my favorite things about Bungie. You've got these insanely brilliant mathematical types that are really passionate about this new technology.
There have been a lot of ideas that have started from the engineering side, where an engineer said, hey, there's this technology I know how to use, or there's this thing I think I can do.
He definitely had a long-term vision about the graphics system. You know, he had some fundamental ideas early on that he thought were going to be really important.
Halo 2 had a water system that looks really good, but it has a lot of limitations. It's pretty convincing from a high angle, but when you're at eye level, the effects breaks down. We were not actually rendering water as geometry.
In the beginning, we'll have to do a little bit of selling. We have to say, hey, look at this cool water.
It's going to be awesome. We're going to do weather, we're going to do water. And the artist then gets extremely excited.
The Halo 3 is based on a new platform of Xbox. So in the new generation, we make the water surface animated.
You can interact with it, you can throw things in the water and it creates ripples and it looks great.
Probably the most fun thing about the water is that the bodies float in it. So you can shoot people and watch them float downstream. When we first began our endeavor with building interactive water for Halo 3, we had given examples of small pools of water, little streams, rivers, and that kind of thing.
We just freshly deliver the water, and then the water happened to have ocean waves on it.
What it turned out that we needed a lot more of was small creeks, babbling brooks, or rushing rivers.
Water's pretty tricky. My first attempt yesterday was pretty bad.
I think it's cool.
You think it's cool?
Yeah.
Tell Marcus you think it's cool.
Marcus complaining about it.
Ocean waves in a stream? No, it doesn't work at all.
You want every creation you make to be beautiful, but with limited budgets, it's hard.
If you're trying to integrate something, cool things into the game engine, you have a pretty limited budget.
You have to be really strategic with how you plan your assets that way.
So she will create a version of the water tool, and then we'll try it. There'll be some things that we want to use differently from an artistic perspective, and so we give them feedback.
Our water shader is pretty highly customizable. The artist can change the murkiness, and you also can change the color of the water. You can change the transparency and sharpness of the wave.
We also have ways for them to paint different parts of the water parameters.
And then the engineer looks at it and goes, oh wow, I never thought you'd be doing something like that with my system. But that's so cool looking that I want to make a better system for you to do that.
And nobody knew what it was going to turn out like. And then when it came time for the beta, which is when it really came together, it was awesome.
Pretty soon that you see water shows up in every level. So basically means if you have something cool, they'll actually go out of their ways, making sure that the technology gets used in the right way. So we're more of a partnership than a competition, because everybody wants their level to look the best.
Halo, right from the start, has always been a game about shooting people and having them die. Every different type of gameplay interaction you need in Halo needs to be implemented specifically in the damage system.
Damage is kind of one of the base layers of communication between all of our objects in the game.
The damage system keeps track of all of the interactions where some input is damaging some object in the world.
So one thing that all the objects in the Halo world have is a bounding sphere, which is a simple representation by which we can intersect two objects. The red spheres are active objects, meaning they're actually running animations, so they're going to take up a little more performance. The blue spheres are things that aren't running animations but are updating, and then the yellow spheres are things that are completely inactive, and so they're passed over very quickly when the game's processing. So the bounding spheres are just a coarse way of figuring out what we're going to hit. To go further, you actually need to look at their collision models. This is a set of this green geometry. When we shoot this object here, it's on that green geometry that we spawn all the sparks, and it's what the projectiles actually hit. Through the damage system, we're actually permuting different parts of the object into more destroyed states. So you can see the tires coming off, you can see the chassis changing to more destroyed states.
You take a look at a vehicle like the Warthog, and it's tremendously complicated to set that up.
Fully loaded with a bunch of guys riding in it. That Warthog is made up of probably about 11 different objects.
So when that Warthog is smoking, it's taking a lot of damage, and finally a rocket comes in, and we detect, okay, the rocket has finally struck the Warthog. What needs to happen?
We look at all the different damage sections on the Warthog for hubcaps and tires and things like that. If any of them were particularly near the epicenter of the blast, then we're going to detach them and blow them off and accelerate them away. You just have this cloud of expanding objects that's now going to go flying through the air.
When you sort of trace it through the game, you actually realize that the object system says, oh, well, you're actually going to destroy the vehicle that these guys are in. I need to eject them from the vehicle. Physics says, oh, well, these guys are dead. I'm going to start ragdolling them. AI is, making the guy scream, oh my God, we've just been killed.
It's the damage being passed from one object to another is the thing that makes these cascading relationships happen.
The relationship between the AI programmers and the mission designers is one of the key communication lines at Bungie. I think the interaction between design and engineering is that design asks for the sky and engineering delivers the earth.
Because we're engineers, we are like really into doing things physically correct.
In a lot of ways, what rules everything is the simulation and sort of the coherence of the sandbox.
The sandbox is all of the characters, and weapons, and vehicles in the game, and how they interact with each other through damage and AI and the player control.
All of the entities that are running around this world have their own rules for how they move.
Everything reacts according to the laws of gravity. Things collide and they bounce off each other.
Jamie's just got tons and tons of different sort of knobs and dials when it comes to physics that he can tweak that can have dramatic changes on how the Warthog drives around in the environment.
The green rectangles are relative velocity, so that's how the tires know how much they're already slipping.
How much friction do you have when you're sliding? You know, what happens when you land nose down on a jump? Can you save it?
The maximum speed that the Warthog can actually go at is a result of all kinds of really complicated sort of system interactions.
How much gravity is applied to that wheel? What's the behavior, you know, on a 20% incline?
The gear ratios of the gears that the Warthog happens to be running in at the time.
These are sort of all the things that just go into getting one vehicle right.
The end result is you have a world that is extremely complicated, obeys lots and lots of rules, but you're able to take advantage of it and make plans and outwit it in a certain way.
Is it engineering's game or is it art's game or, you know, is it design in charge of everything?
I think it's a collective decisions.
Trying to manage everybody's different passions and keep everybody, you know, happy and productive and working and passionate is hard.
I'm sure that Jamie will tell you that he owns the sandbox, and I'm sure that Damian and the engineers will probably tell you that they own the sandbox, but to me it's pretty clear that the people who own the sandbox are the people who buy the game and the people who do the kinds of creative things within that sandbox that we could never have dreamed of.
Didn't damage you at all? It's total crap! Wow! I swing and nobody gets hit.
It's not consistent at all.
The grab hammer just really currently is not doing what it's supposed to do. The timing's totally wrong from the time that you press the trigger to the time it inflicts the damage.
Kale, your bug sucks.
Please fix your bug, Kale.
Probably the weirdest bug I've seen so far is one where you were able to get Master Chief's head stuck into the ceiling and his body would just stretch down.
When two people would lunge at one another, there was a possibility for them to actually pass through one another.
Get a person positioned on a rock, and as you're lunging at them, if they drop off the back of the rock, you're going to have to go sailing about half a mile in the air. It's really difficult to figure out all the different ways somebody is going to play our game.
People will play this in totally bizarre ways.
Kills with just the sword, and they'll just want to go through the game by never using weapons. It really has to change the way that you think about testing the game.
Game testing is an incredibly tedious process. The main reason it's important to test Halo is we add this one new character or one new weapon. Everything we change has a potential to crash the game.
Ooh, face. The testing of Xbox Live requires hours and hours of automation for our matchmaking. When you have over 100,000 simultaneous users playing your game, it's very complicated and requires lots and lots of boxes.
There's so many interconnections between code and content.
It is a system that whenever you go into it, if you're going to make changes, you'd better be damn sure what you're doing is not completely breaking things.
The key to Bungie's success is not some sort of magic. It's testers that keep the build stable to make sure that everything is as fun as it could be.
We're grunts. We kind of do the dirty work. We all get in about 6 o'clock. In the first 2 hours, we test just to make sure basic things like the level loads, that the player spawns into the level, we can run, jump, fire weapons, exit the game. That has to happen first thing in the morning because, like with the current test we're working on, it's 11,000 lines of test cases. And then the developers, they want to make sure that they have a functioning build that they can then work on that day.
We required the testers to shoot everything, run through everything, jump 15,000 times in the same place to see if it'll break the game.
These are the weapons that failed on the hull of the Wraith.
Wow, okay, let me change the model and make sure that's not an issue.
One of my niches is finding a hole in the world and that allows you to get outside the playable area. Each time they fix one, It may create another hole somewhere else because of the geometry, so it's this back and forth battle.
The test team swears they tried to jump from limb to limb in the tree and get on top of that rock, you know, and none of them could do it. And then the first day you see a movie on YouTube where somebody gets on top of the rock and gets outside the world.
Manual testing really is for stuff that we need visual verification. Somebody has to watch what's going on and check a box. It actually works the way that we intended.
So we're going to do a full 8. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. So that one worked.
When you click campaign on the main menu, it takes you to the campaign UI screen.
When we're looking at player colors, I checked color 1, I checked color 2. If you want to add something in single player, is this going to up multiplayer in any way?
The difference between multiplayer testing and single player testing is that in multiplayer, you've got a lot more variables that can be going on that you can't control.
You can have up to 16 machines in the same game, and there's going to be different network latency and lag.
A lot of times it's just a mistake where they'll transpose a number or leave a decimal point off.
One machine may think that one person's over here, and the other machine may think that the person is over there.
But all of a sudden, that bullet that should have struck you in your left earlobe, it actually grazes right by, and now the whole world has skewed and you've gone out of sync.
What?
We had a crash. We have designers who take a weapon like the shotgun or the sword and they get it to work perfectly on a single box. But then you put it in 2 boxes that are separated. One guy's playing in Maryland and one guy's playing in LA. And then all of a sudden, the designer goes, what the hell happened? This weapon's terrible. It doesn't work at all.
I'm going to invite the Japanese guys to our game now. Eigo hanashimasu ka? Ganbarimashou. What does it feel like to play US to Japan? Because none of us have done it yet. And Luke wrote all the networking code, so.
Anytime you change one line of code, it absolutely can end up in ways you wouldn't expect.
Every time you add a new kind of weapon, adding that sort of complexity can up other weapons.
They're seeing pings of in the 200s.
Changing a value on a weapon could break the way it reloads. Speeding the Warthog up by just a mile an hour at top speed could mean every time you go off a jump of over 5 meters, you die. If you don't test that jump, as soon as you ship the game, the world is screaming because they're dying every time you take the jump.
The way Bungie tests involves everyone. The artist is testing by running the game and adding new textures to it. Designers testing the game by adding a new vehicle or tweaking the raid. Marty, C. Paul, and Jay are testing the game by tweaking audio. It's people sitting at their desk doing work, testing for a game.
The emphasis on tests definitely comes from the top.
The studio manager for Bungie right now is Harold Ryan, who was the test manager for Halo 1 and Halo 2.
You can never test enough. We have a dedicated test team in the studio that works on the project from the first day we start on it.
Here, it's a much more methodical, professional approach to testing.
A lot of times you'll find the testers know some of the systems better than the engineers do.
Harold understands exactly what tests can do, and he has high expectations.
Jamie is definitely a Padawan test manager. He has not yet earned his stripes.
Love my job. Yay, are you hiring? For the lifetime of Halo 3, we have like 30,000 bugs in the database, of which 27,000 of them are fixed, but still we have 3,000 bugs that are active in the database while we're adding hundreds of bugs per day from the test team, and it's only going to go up.
It takes about 3 years of testing to test a game, about 20 days of which the game's actually tested outside of Bungie's building.
Microsoft has a group of people devoted to doing user research.
It's called usability testing. We actually run one participant at a time.
Now it's time to get out of here. Ooh, I think he's got me.
It's all about getting inside the player's head.
The whole user research team is a bunch of PhDs in psychology that sort of map out people's experience.
We're looking at how the user feels about this level or that level of that vehicle.
I like how smart these things are. It doesn't do the same thing over and over again.
There's a completely different experience for a designer actually watching other people play the game.
I think I need to go in that cave.
Everybody, nope. Being able to stand there with a notepad and just write things down is just totally invaluable.
Even though there's one-way glass in between us and them, you still have to be careful, because if you laugh too loud, it goes right through the glass, and then they can tell that you're laughing.
I want to welcome you guys for today's playtest session. We're not testing you guys, we're testing the game.
The other kind of testing that we do is called play testing, and that's where we try and get a broader sample. When you get 80% of the people with some type of problem, well, then you know you have more of an issue.
I take them very seriously, but our playtests are incredibly painful. I've seen people get stuck in one encounter for 10 minutes. You almost are apologizing. Dude, I'm so sorry. Oh, turn right. Please turn right now.
When we were playtesting the Halo 1 tutorial, we had people getting so frustrated that they just wanted to quit and go home. We had several people ask to stop playing, which is kind of embarrassing as the designer.
We get so much data from testing, not just what's broken and what's buggy, but we get a lot of data about what's fun and what's not fun.
Can the camera still?
You've been punked. There is no Halo 3.
Oh, no.
For Halo 3, we've basically instrumented the entire game. Almost immediately after a playtest, we'll get data that will tell us things that are going to frustrate or confuse or irritate a player.
Just kind of the 6 high-level things that we're collecting in playtest. The fun is up.
So we have a number of ways of representing the data, and the most significant one is to show it visually on a map. If it's a multiplayer level, showing all the spots where people die. If it's a single-player level, showing all the parts where people said they were frustrated.
If we're confused, you can actually click on a data point and it will load up a film of that person and how they died.
Oh my God.
You want to maximize the amount of time the player's having fun.
It's really a difficult thing to do, to make it okay that you die a couple times, but not too many times.
We do a lot of playtests to make sure that everybody else is having fun, but really I only know that it's fun when I'm having fun.
As you're closing a game out, you go through the difficult process of having to decide what things you want to fix, that we call triage. Every time you fix a bug, you have the potential to create many more bugs.
Triage, or Joe calls it blood-sucking vampire whore.
It's like taking a hammer and hammering nails through your... Never mind.
Films are not displaying the multiplayer flashing name when using a headset.
Mislabeled territories on Valhalla. This is insane.
We just gotta power through it because it takes forever. We've already been up here an hour and a half and we just want to finish. And it makes us all good friends too.
We always leave these meetings wanting to kill each other.
Exactly. I like you though. I don't like that guy, but I like you.
A lot of times, design and test are sort of at loggerheads.
The artists and designers are never done. There's always one more thing that could tweak.
We just need to figure out how to get more reinforcements and more waves, add more cover.
You're just shoveling in content, and it's very difficult to keep it bug-free.
Sometimes new code slips in that we don't know about, and that causes me to be a little bit less smiley face. Like, what? What are you guys doing? Why did you add this?
My job is to make the game more fun, whereas the test team looks at it, their job is to make sure the game is stable. If I'm completely happy, then it means we shouldn't have made the change because it was too risky. And if test is completely happy, then we probably aren't making enough changes. But if we're both sort of unhappy, that's usually the best thing.
If the developer guys didn't put bugs in, we wouldn't have jobs. But luckily enough, the dev guys put a couple bugs in there, and I feel like I have the best job security of the bunch.
Once again.
We take a lot of effort to make sure the game is stable, that the game is fun, and that at least 90% of the people out there, they'll have a good time playing it.
There are a couple of crashes that we won't be able to figure out that we'll blame on solar flares or space aliens.
As long as the game doesn't set your house on fire, all the imperfections, I'm perfectly fine with it going out the door.
You never want to let it go. You always want to iterate on it. But if we really believe it's not ready to go out the door, it won't go out the door.
I know you, your past, your future.
We really see audio as an incredibly important thing.
Everything that you hear or see is created by someone. Everything is designed very intentionally.
Halo without its sound is like trying to think of Halo without its graphics or Halo without its gameplay.
For us, audio is all the spoken words and music and sound effects that you hear.
It has to be enhancing the experience and the drama of every situation.
Destroy them, brothers!
You know, if you trick all your senses enough, you're really immersed into it. Then you're not just playing a game, you're playing an experience.
Escape, what's it?
Audio design. They're always at the end of the pipeline.
I build all the different sounds, the rolling sound, and the grinding sound.
have objects flying around,
The bullet impact sounds,
shell casings falling,
and the hit sounds.
but it'll also generate something based on the surface that it lands on as well. Level of detail is trying to make the sound realistic for the distance of where you're hearing the sound from. When you hear it from across the map, it's going to have much more of kind of a distant, muted crack to it than a big, beefy gunfire being fired next to me. It really sounds realistic. Sounds like the newsreels.
We decided, because he didn't want like just regular old gun foley for this brute spike rifle here. So we got these two kind of heavy metal pieces, a clamp and a military utility axe, and kind of whacked them together to make all the reload and ready sounds and stuff for this spike rifle.
You always need interesting sounds. I will hear sounds out in public or out in nature or whatever that just other people just don't even notice. It washes right over them. About a year and a half ago, I was down in Ixtapa, Mexico. I swear these people sitting on the beach just thought I was insane because I had a pair of headphones on, got a stereo mic in my hand. I'm just running up and down the water, trying to get as much different water footstep sounds as possible.
Most of what we do is take all these different elements, mix it together until it sounds awesome.
I just start listening like a chef cooking in a kitchen. You have all these ingredients, you start throwing some stuff in, and say, maybe this spice will be good. Rob didn't just bang on a wok, he beat the living snot out of it. Ended up getting used as the Warthog hubcap.
I'm gonna make a recording of the hydraulic door here on my car. I have a Subaru hatchback, and I recorded my hatch opening to get some kind of a sound that kind of goes up in pitch, and then you can manipulate it to sound big. I've used that as part of like a door opening. I believe it's in waste at the moment. This is our trusty audio editor. Right, if I want it to be bigger, I can drop it down an octave or something.
When we went to go make sound for the Mongoose, I recorded a two-stroke Vespa that I own that has an aftermarket muffler on it, which just makes it obscenely obnoxious. Then we recorded Eric Arroyo's Fiero. 6-inch fat pipes on the back, 2 of them dual exhaust. As I jump in it, you can hear the growl of the two-stroke. Then you got this really growly, 4-stroke, huge sounding exhaust. And now it's the mixture of both of them.
We see the world from an audio standpoint. That's who we are.
Marty is king in the audio department. It's his gig, it's his engine.
Or, he pushes a coffee cup around the studio really well.
Yeah, I don't see work getting done here. What the heck is going on?
Marty.
Oh, do you need some makeup?
Wow. Marty's coming in here to give me a hard time.
Okay.
Whatever he says goes for the most part, and he's got the bigger, nicer studio.
He hasn't put the wet bar in there yet. We're always waiting for him to put the wet bar. For the three of us, it's a really nice relationship. I think part of it might be that all three of us are musicians. And I think that really helps.
I take music really, really seriously. I think music is a gift, and I don't take it lightly. Closing the door, putting my hands on the keyboard, as soon as I hear something I've played that is exciting to me, that makes me go, oh, that's a cool feeling. And then I'll start working in that direction. The important thing about interactive music is that it feels like it's scoring what you're doing. I want it to sort of sneak in. I can play with all these different pieces of music, combining them so they're overlapping and layering, and this will all eventually correspond to something significant that's happening in the game. So I have lots of different kinds of pieces of music. I have pieces that I call glue that are just kind of ambient, smushy sounding pieces like this. And then if I hit play on this next piece, it would correspond to a stinger, a little shaker sound. Then we can trigger a percussive piece. And then in the percussive piece, I can say, play an alt version, which means it's going to start to get a little bit more active. I'm going to hit stop, and we'll come to a nice natural out. And what's nice about all these things is every time I hit start or stop or alt or any of that stuff, it corresponds to something that could be happening in the game. If we have a significant moment and I say, so I just brought in the low strings, a trigger will happen, and then at some natural point in the music will do its transition or its ending or whatever it is. And I try to keep it as natural as I can.
You're perfect. Just keep on going.
When this is over, that hammer is going in someone's ass!
You want me to stick what?
Ouch!
He must have been real scared of me.
It's really dirty.
On Halo 3, it was really cool. We were able to record dialogue in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Seattle.
Take 2, 020 LA secret base, take 2.
And you, shipmaster, just glassed half a continent. Maybe the flood isn't all I should be worried about.
There are always moments in the game, like once you cross the river, trigger this line of dialogue.
Objective in sight! Watch for heavy armor!
But it's not like it happens at the same time every time. So we have 3 categories of dialogue, essentially. We have cinematic dialogue, we have mission dialogue, and then we have combat dialogue.
More shooting would be better, thank you!
Oh, did I shoot you? I'm sorry.
Don't stick a fork in me, sucker! I ain't done yet!
It's really important for me and Marty to get on the same page in terms of what those lines mean.
The combat dialogue is the thing that causes each AI character to seem like they're real. They'll respond in, literally 1,000 different ways. And maybe they're funny.
Sen-effin-sational!
Or maybe they're scared.
I'm hit!
We have 35,000 lines of combat dialogue because we've lost our minds. And this is ridiculous. And we're trying to cover every possible situation.
This is my voice folder. It's an awful lot of stuff.
After the dialogue gets recorded, Jay has to go in and actually split them all up into individual files so the game knows to call them all separately. If the actor did multiple takes, he has to choose which take he wants.
We have 10 Marines, and one Marine actor has to get about 1,000 or 1,100 usable takes.
You got a real smart mouth on you, don't you? Kind of pretty, too.
And on the fly, the game code will go in and say, all right, he's attacking somebody with a gun, so say one of those things. Sergeant Johnson. So if he hears a foe, and he might say,
That's weapons fire. Somebody's shooting. You got cover. Bastard took cover.
He recorded 20 things. I'll select which one's the best and pull out the others. And those are triggered randomly. If he happens to say one that's particularly funny or kind of unique or whatever, we can assign a skip fraction to it that says, hey, don't play this one so frequently.
My faithful, stand firm. Though our enemies crowd around us, we tread the blessed path. In a moment, I will light the rings, and all who believe shall be saved.
Cinematic dialogue takes place during the cutscenes or the vignettes.
Until we kill truth, stop the rings from firing.
Once I get the actors and I cut all their takes up, first thing I do is I say, okay, all you actors, now start talking to each other. So I do that just simply so I can balance the quality and their volume.
Jay and Marty and C-Paul apply post-processing to the alien characters, stuff that makes them sound a little bit less human. They pitch the brutes down.
Anything else, or is that all? Killing you is almost too easy.
They pitch the grunts up.
He's pecking on me.
He's pecking on me.
The sort of the robot little tinny voice on Guilty Spark.
A wise decision, given their predilection for destructive acquisition. A wise decision, given their predilection for destructive acquisition.
So we're right about 35,000 lines total that's triggered by the dialogue system. And then you multiply that times 10 languages. Luckily, those 10 languages go into the column of Graham's problem.
Yeah, Loc is one of the biggest jobs. French, Italian, German, Spanish, and we're doing, for Halo 3, we're doing a version of Spanish that is just for Europe, and then we're also doing a Latin American version of Spanish. And then Brazilian Portuguese, and Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. And we have to have ways of verifying that, one, it matches the English, and two, that it actually gets put into the game and plays where it's supposed to. So this is the area where all of our localization testers sit. Chief, come to the back of the frigate.
What's this something special?
It's an innuendo.
Okay.
It's like, I got something special for you.
Jefe, ven al fondo de la fragata.
Jefe, ven para atrás de la fragata.
已经回到五那。
Atrás da fragata.
프리게이트 뒤편으로 오세요.
我给你一个礼物。
특별한 것이 준비되어 있습니다. Tengo algo especial para ti.
In the end, we get as much stuff as we can in and get it sounding pretty stinging good, and then we bring Marty in and we play together.
When we're playing the game with each other and against each other, we're just making sure that each one of us can really listen now to what have we created from an audio standpoint, how does it work. See, this is really hard to get work done.
Jay, you need to put a fade out on the loop.
We can be talking to each other while we're playing, like, yeah, that's too loud, that's too soft.
Well, we'll keep struggling with it until we get it right. He can listen to something that for the first time and say, like, God, that sounds perfect, but maybe we should change this other thing.
Wait. All right. Don't. I promise I won't shoot.
Every once in a while, I can make sure that I kill somebody and they know who's still in charge. But then they kill me, I don't understand. The final mix is where lots of stuff finally comes together. And that's when we're really testing to see if the AI that's in the game is really making the right decisions.
There's thousands of sounds that could potentially play. It has to all mix together.
Which for us is all about variation.
You have 10 footstep sounds instead of one footstep sound that you hear over and over again, because that's annoying. The engine randomly chooses.
We actually try to hook things up in as small pieces as possible because it's the interaction of all those pieces that makes real life. It's like having a mixer in a box. The audio engineer is sitting inside the Xbox and is going, oh, let's do this and that and the other thing, and mixing the volumes of the game on the fly as you go.
If a grenade goes off right next to you at the same time that a guy right next to you is talking, the audio system is making the decision about how loud to make one versus the other. It's a very, very complicated system.
We actually turn down all these different sound categories, different percentages.
You want it louder though.
There's this smart mixer that's mixing the audio, and we just make sure that he's always making the right decisions.
You know, you could say, oh, this footstep isn't that important, right? But if you try to make every single thing you do as cool as you possibly can, and you put it all together, and you've got something really cool.
Dialogue and Foley and music and the cinematics and the ambience and the level and the sound of the characters running around. I mean, all this stuff comes and adds up to, you know, to make a total audio experience that hopefully is really satisfying for the player.
When they look back on their experience, they should feel like their experience was scored, but they should never be aware of what they did to cause it to be scored. Okay, that sounds good. Thanks for doing that again. That was great.
Hello, my name is Chris Butcher, and I'm an engineering lead here at Bungie Studios. We have a crack team of networking specialists here, whose sole job is making sure Halo 3 runs great on Xbox Live. But you have to do your part, set up your home network right, because if that sucks, there's nothing we can do. To show you how to set up your network, I took a field trip into the woods of western Washington State to the home of the Candlin family. Dave Candlin works at Bungie as a graphic designer, so I figured he'd have the perfect home setup. Dave said, great, we'll just be home relaxing with our 6 kids. Come by anytime.
Where's Riley?
As it turns out, Dave and Marcy are just as good at setting up a home network as they are at managing their kids. Hey Dave, so show me what you got.
So this is my office. Pretty cool, huh?
Like any good nerd, Dave's got a whole collection of computers connected to his home network. It sounds great, but what happens when the family wants to use the internet and all Dave really wants to do is play some Halo?
Guys, how much longer are you gonna be? Guys.
Rule number 1. For the best Xbox Live experience, make sure you kick the rest of your family off your home network.
Somewhere to go.
Of course, it won't matter if your connection is too weak. Rule number 2. Get a good network connection. You need lots of bandwidth for playing games, both downstream and upstream bandwidth for receiving and sending data.
Some connections are great for browsing the web, but they have no bandwidth for sending data. That's bad for gaming. You can't shoot people when they're shooting you. So what's the best type of internet connection?
Fiber optic cable.
But?
It's kind of hard to find.
What else?
DSL.
Problem?
Kind of costs a lot, and they don't pay me that much at Bungie.
Go find someone who cares. What else?
Cable modem.
Which is what you have.
Right.
But what's the problem with that?
A lot of neighbors sharing the same cable company.
You said you were going to be off at 9 o'clock.
Right, Dave. Last option?
Dial-up, but you don't expect that to work, do you?
All I'm saying is we tested it, and it works.
But it isn't much fun.
So from best to worst, here are the choices. Fiber optic cable, DSL, cable modem, or dial-up. Of course, if you subscribe to a crappy internet service provider that goes down frequently, none of this will matter.
47 hours, 26 minutes.
Rule number 3. Make sure you choose an ISP with a decent service record and a good helpline. Of course, paying your bill on time also helps.
Hi, this is Helen. Can I help you? Hello?
Finally, the all-important question of your router. A lot of you have routers running your home networks, and if they aren't configured right, we can't help you.
You might be able to log on to Xbox Live, but you won't be able to hook up with all the people you want to. Rule number 4. Try to get a router which has the Xbox Live compatible or certified for Windows Vista logo.
If you can't find one, at least get one that supports Universal Plug and Play, or UPnP.
To test whether your router's working, go to your Xbox dashboard and select Test Xbox Live Connection. Rule number 5. You need your NAT type at the bottom to say open. If you have a wireless router, here's rule number 6. Make sure you don't put it near other appliances like computer monitors or cordless phones. Anything using the 2.4 GHz spectrum will interfere. Rule number 7 is about location. First of all, don't put your wireless router in a corner.
Keep it away from metal objects like filing cabinets. Oh, and while you're keeping your router away from certain things,
Here you go. Thank you. Okay, don't put it on the furniture, all right? Okay.
be careful what you put on it as well.
Dad, what you doing?
Oh, just check an email, sweetie.
Oh. Bye.
See ya.
A good place for it is up high on a bookcase. Yeah, it's good, Dave.
So here they are, 7 rules of home networking. Kick everyone else off, get the best network connection possible, choose a decent ISP, make sure you have a compatible router, make sure your NAT type reads open, observe the 2.4 GHz rule, and pick a good location for your router. If you follow all these rules, you'll have so much fun, you'll be coming up with new and creative ways to spend more time with your Xbox.
And you'll also be able to have an awesome time playing Halo 3 online with your family.
What? No, just Dave. Give it here.
Just try not to have too much fun.
I said no more fighting.
Thanks, Dave, for showing us how not to set up your home network.
No worries, Chris.
I could have sworn Dave said he had 6 kids.
No animals or Candlin family members were harmed in the making of this video segment, although a few egos were bruised. Do not attempt to make a sophisticated high-end instructional video like this at home. The warnings and advice contained in this video are intended solely for the purpose of helping Halo fans to set up their home network. If you still don't have any fun at Halo 3, it's your own damn fault. If on the other hand you become totally and permanently addicted and suddenly find yourself without job, car, home, wife, kids, or any life whatsoever outside the Halo universe, that's pretty much what we intended. Don't accept candy from strangers, don't run with scissors, and don't forget to finish the fight.
It's 6:03 in the morning. We're the forearm team.
Did you write the bug?
Closing on bug number 25,000. I'd say we'd probably get it today.
It's just a stream of bugs. This morning I was up at 4 assigning bugs too. It never ends.
24/7. There's always someone here.
I usually get in between 6:30 and 7 and leave after, 7 or 8.
Time goes by pretty quick. I think it's about 6, 7 o'clock. I get a free breakfast when I show up early enough.
There's a lot of food consumed in this building. I would be
really frightening to count the number of calories.
The day at Bungie starts with the obligatory
run through security.
You have like 3 seconds to get to the door and actually open it before it relocks.
The warehouse.
Over there's the multiplayer engineering pod.
Where our genius, wildly talented programmers sit and make problems for artists, typically. Maybe not Luke Timmons.
And all along the far back wall, we have environment art.
Hey, Marcus, how would you describe this pod?
This particular pod? Command Central.
Crunch is the period of game development when everyone on the team is there working late, trying to cram as much stuff in as he can.
There's not really that much pressure until you see the countdown clocks. It's kind of a doom clock.
The anxiety level's pretty high. I think I left it at 1:30 last night.
The pressure's on, but usually that's where people come out and do their best work.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing today.
I don't either.
This used to be a Lowe's hardware store, I believe.
This building used to be True Value Hardware.
Or maybe it was a supermarket.
From what I know now, they do Halo in here.
There's a second floor, but it's only on the very back section of the building. It's actually, I think, above the bathrooms.
The bottom floor is for development. The people on the top floor kind of run the stuff that's kind of external to the development of the game.
The full-time employees don't want to be disturbed. Therefore, don't use the front door if you're not working near the front door.
The only people in the studio who actually have offices are the sound guys. That door that's open right over there is the door to Marty's famous ivory tower office.
When it says email or die, that means he's composing.
This is the bowels of Bungie. Several people believe that my main role is to push the coffee cup around the studio. This little tiny area here is artists that are doing multiplayer map design. They have plants, they have Chris Carney memorabilia.
Strangest thing about the building. It's got to be the no windows.
You have no idea what the weather's like outside.
It's cloudy.
It's a little bit like a bunker.
So everybody can hear everything you're saying all the time.
There's supposed to be this kind of unwritten rule that if somebody has their headphones on, that you don't come and tap them on the back and ask them a question. But I think it's an unwritten rule because nobody's really paying attention to it.
The acoustics are fantastic in here. I could hear somebody in test fart, and they're all the way on the other side of the building.
Went over from there. There's the design pod with all the guys working on the single-player missions.
The design pit. It's really meaningless without these guys. Except Miller.
Whatever door.
It's actually kind of tough to tell what time it is.
Don't they do that in jails? They don't put clocks anywhere?
It's the building that just has this sort of casino-like atmosphere.
Las Vegas.
They make you walk past all these aisles so you could go to a computer and maybe sit down and do some work.
Good morning. Suck.
Number 69 is lemongrass chicken for Sean. Figure out who gets what.
It happens every crunch.
8, 10, 12 weeks, you haven't had a meal at home.
We can't live off of McDonald's every day.
We started doing this because we were doing Crunch, and we're like, yeah, everybody starts eating the free food.
He's the reason why we have the weigh-in. He was a biscuit away.
Estimated body fat, and estimated lean body weight.
I haven't weighed myself for years.
Yeah, that's all
Or do you go to the
that matters
bathroom, take a massive dump, you're like, this will compensate.
Sometimes that saves 2 pounds. Who knows?
People in the neighborhood that's just looky-loos, want to know what's going on. Occasionally they walk by and they open the door and they can see this figure here. And it just looks like a place they want to see what's inside, So they try to trick me. And so far I've caught all of them.
Harold is the studio manager.
Harold Ryan is my boss.
He sits there. Harold actually has the smallest desk in the company.
This is where we go whenever we need help with the light mapper. How's the light mapper doing today?
Excellent.
Hey, Luis, how's the light mapper doing today?
Not too well.
See, it's the...
This is sort of the central pod of test right here. There's Jamie Evans, our test lead, hard at work as usual.
Hey, rumor has it there's a tester here with a tattoo.
Yeah?
Can we see it? Exciting, wasn't it?
I think I can count the number of women that work on Bungie on one hand.
There's women here?
There's a few, yeah, 1, 2, 3.
The interesting thing about our fax machine is it doesn't actually receive faxes. So it's just kind of this little quirky thing in the system that is just insanely inefficient.
There's 3 bathrooms.
2 here, and then there's
One up at the front, which is sort of for guests, and it's in the safe zone.
And then there's one upstairs that they just put in.
1 out of every 3 times I go to the bathroom, I actually have to wait in line.
1 bathroom for 200 guys.
2 or 3 stalls for the guys, and I don't know how many stalls. How many stalls are there for the
There's
girls?
equal number.
Really? How do you know that?
Another for 3 women.
And I've spent my entire life waiting in lines.
How crazy is that?
Have you been outside when people are dropping the deuce?
No.
Like we hacky sack outside, and you can smell every scent. It's like this huge gust of. I'm not kidding you. You can't get on your skin. Feel that.
No, I'm not touching that. Just like I'm not going to touch your hacky sack from now on.
When you're really in the thick of the crunch, you start having dreams about work. You're in here for 20 hours a day, and you're not seeing your family. And those are the things I think that give you the battle scars.
Okay, so that's Damiani's.
11 hours, either free breakfast or free dinner, but not both.
There's actually a false floor. There's all the network cables that run underneath that.
How many miles of wire in the building?
Millions of miles of network cables.
So 175 ports times 12 cables each.
That's probably too high.
Divided by 5280 for miles. That's 49.7 miles of cable.
It's 50 miles.
Moving all of the testers from over there to over here so that we're next to Jamie.
That's right. Everybody closer, better communication.
It's Jamie's master plan.
We're like an organic...
Yes, we really seaweed.
Some of the people that come in tomorrow, they're going to be in for a pretty big surprise. Those guys kind of knew that they were moving. This guy, I don't think knew.
We're a floating island of manness.
I don't know what it's like actually under the false floor. They say that people who crunched a little too hard, you might find some of them down there.
Crunch is the seed of divorce.
Nothing got done today.
I've been fixing a single bug all day, and it still isn't fixed.
It is the seed of stress headaches.
It's a really big mess. This is just busted.
Crunch is also incredibly fun.
Sweet.
Yes.
Ice cream?
Ice cream.
Delivered just for you.
Wow.
Mike Zach? Oh, come on, you need another one. You can't eat just one.
I already had 2.
I think everybody wants to work in a place where they're friends and where they enjoy coming to work and they do things that are, that are cool.
Oh, it's only 10:30. Wait till midnight or so. That's when it gets nuts.
This is what matters, guys. Yes, there's a lot of playing around, but this is what matters. Today, this is today, and this is content complete.
This was from a housewarming party for Mike Zach. Dave wore these green underwear. I ended up with them at the end of the party. Washed them, of course, and then brought them back.
Hey, Kiss, how you doing today?
Hey, good evening, sir. Here's the keys.
Thank you.
Crunch is when everyone is pretty much sleeping here. Sometimes brushing your teeth, the good ideas don't come, but the harsh realities come.
Oh, 1 in the morning. Wow, it's already Friday.
Making sure that people take baths and stuff like that because we're in close proximity.
You know, I don't actually know a whole lot about the shaft, but we had to do an SDK upgrade, and so I was here till 2:30. So somebody gave me the shaft.
It is the middle of the night, and we're going to be playing the beta with a group of guys in Japan. Ganbarimashou. Good night, Green Johnny. How did that feel for you?
It's 6 o'clock in the morning, and I have been here working almost overnight.
Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Good, good.
I've went home and come back and they didn't even go home 24, 28 hours a shift. Thanks, sir.
Actually, I take a half-hour break, close my eyes for 20 minutes.
So hey, take care. Have a good day, Jerome. Have a good shift.
Yeah, I think it might take me, half hour or 1 hour more. After I solve that, I will be super happy. I will tell you, I think I fixed that problem.
Yeah, so the thing with pulling an all-nighter is
you get the good parking spot the next day.
Good morning, Phil. Good morning, gentlemen. Morning, Phil. Back at it again?
Back at it.
Back at it. All right, have a good morning. You too.
Halo 3 is all about the things that we want in Halo 1 and 2. The brutes were added in a little too late, I think. We didn't have a chance to really flesh them out. And so that's what we're doing for Halo 3.
Nailing the flavor for a character is often very difficult. You sort of have to feel it out as you go. The brutes in Halo 2 were meant to be more like the barbarians in Rome. We wanted the brutes to typify that abusive, evil invader.
But right from the start, the design of the brutes was not consistent about reinforcing that they're meant to be worthy adversaries for the player.
Now that the elites have left the Covenant, it gave us a problem for Halo 3.
For the brutes to behave kind of similar to the elites, they have to be totally redone because they're not interesting to fight.
He was just a damage sponge. There were no interesting reactions. There wasn't an interesting death.
The only tactic the player has is just pump them full of lead until they fall down.
It doesn't really turn out to be really good gameplay.
Going back and trying to recreate a character like this is one part art and one part science, and the art part is very difficult to understand just exactly how long it's going to take.
Concept artist tries to communicate through composition what the idea is trying to get across. A lot of times the direction just gets narrowed down to, can you just make it look cool? The brutes originally looked a lot like Chewbacca. Like they were just big hairy guys with a bandolier. I looked at a lot of animal reference, rhinoceros and some gorilla. Their natural body plating is brutish. This was our way of like kind of pulling them into the fold of the Covenant. They've got kind of ancient looking buckles and gauntlets and leather straps holding all that stuff together, making them a little more serious bad guy, I hope.
Everything the character does, whenever the character moves, we've created an animation for it.
In which way that character moves, that kind of makes him unique.
These days now we got our animation reference area upstairs. We just take it upon ourselves to go film us doing each individual motion and then work that into our animation.
If a brute is punching the face off a Marine, we're going to embellish that. We're going to make them punch the jaw off too. We're going to make them just punch straight through that Marine.
God damn, that looked like fucking real life. I was just like, that was awesome.
When I look over and see Jeremy doing something, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. How can I work something like that into his moveset?
It's exciting to see what Jeremy does tomorrow and what Bill does the next day. It's always a new...
Me too.
But not John. No, not so much me. No. Nobody likes John.
Players who are familiar with the brutes from Halo 2 will notice that these brutes are fully armed, fully equipped, and are not going to be pushovers.
For the game to be interesting, like the guys you're playing against have to be fun to play. Does the profile of the character create an interesting look from afar? Is it fun to shoot at him when he runs around? Do you see his limbs moving up and down because there's things jutting up from the sides?
Rather than make them look like big dumb apes, we want to make them very brutal, pragmatic warriors. And that's really informed a lot of the visual design.
Visually, through the art, we define the different classes. The standard brute has just his normal armor with a very standard helmet. The brute captain has a much bigger headdress. And then the brute chieftains have very elaborate headdresses and very elaborate shoulder pads and armor on them. The interesting thing with some of the ideas that we came up with is not only do we need to figure out how the brutes interact with the other covenant, but also how brutes interact with brutes. And we developed the idea of the brute pack.
What makes it feel like two characters are aware of each other, deciding to do the same thing at the same time?
Maybe you're kind of come around a corner and see them doing some sort of an activity that has nothing to do with fighting, but is going to give you sort of more insight into what the brute pack mentality is like.
We have this really brutal behavior now, which is just the chieftain saying, everybody throw a grenade, and as a result, a second later, you have grenades flying in your face.
That's always going to give the player a little bit of an adrenaline rush that, oh my god, now this guy's right up in my face, I have to back up and hit him hard.
When the players kill him, they're like, oh man, I had to kill that guy. And then they go around a corner and there's like 4 more of them standing there, right? And they're like,
I think the brutes bring out sort of the indignant, self-righteous aspect of a lot of players. So I'm hoping to hear a lot of, take that, and I can't believe that you have invaded my planet and I'm going to throw you off. And we hope to really bring people into the character and the drama of the situation by putting them up against these really brutal characters.
You are, all of you, vermin. Cowering in the dirt, thinking, what? That you might escape the coming fire? Your world will burn until its surface is but glass.
The multiplayer side of Halo has always been a little bit more fast and loose.
In multiplayer, everything and anything can happen.
Oh my god. Mother...
Oh!
We need to be either as good as Halo 2, and obviously that is our bar, is as at least as good, better as Halo better.
Enjoy your walk back to the beach.
While you're working on the project, the bar is sort of a moving target. It can be intimidating for sure. Typically my morning starts with me weeping at my desk for about 30 minutes, and then I get to work.
We've really gotten hardcore about instituting afternoon playtests. Okay, it's territories, 15-second respawn time.
And it's become fundamental in how we're working on the game.
Oh, Froman. Oh, you're so close.
From day one, people have been in there playing it, which really refines the gameplay.
It was horrible there.
Oh, who broke territories?
I think Halo 2 multiplayer has been played like 4 billion times. Competing against yourself is stressful.
Coming up with these scenarios that people play over and over again. Now, how can we rethink that and create something that's new and interesting? We started getting more into these asymmetrical maps, where it's offense versus defense, where that's a choke point that you want to hold. And I think High Ground is an example of that.
Some of the specific things that we tried out were having a wall that you have to get past. That sort of defined whether you won or lost the game.
And then we stuck some towers in, and we put AI gunners on all the towers. So as you're running up the hill, you're just getting tagged by all these AI guys. That's the direction that we went. We're like, whoa, that's way too hard.
In this version, the wall is actually perpendicular to the hill. And in the final version of High Ground, that wall has been rotated 45 degrees because it had 2 turrets up here as well as 2 turrets in the other tower. So there was a lot of firepower coming down on the hill. That got all simplified into 1 turret actually right above the gate, which we felt was not as brutal to the attackers. It's pretty obvious to us when we start working on these maps that they have to be fun for the 100th and the 200th and the 1000th time.
You weren't figuring out the switches and the doors?
Yeah, the glows are like you want to walk up and fight. Watching people run through your map challenges a lot of the assumptions you made about it. Like, oh, I think people will use this hill for sniping, and then no one uses it. Then you get great comments like, this map sucks, I hate this spot, I hate you.
A lot of the time that we spend on these levels are in the details, making sure that the run to a weapon is equal for different areas, getting the distances right for flag captures.
Because we make such an effort to place titled objects in a level, like the waterfall, the bridge, the porta potty, people can say the flag is down by the porta potty. That immediately helps with that social aspect.
Tell them about the porta potty.
One of the things that we talked about in pre-production was player movement, and that's where the man cannon came from. There's different ways to move the player around the map.
In Halo 1 and Halo 2, we had these teleporters. Although it was a great way to get around quickly, it didn't provide as much inherent danger as the man cannon does. There's almost nothing more rewarding than sniping a guy out of the air as he's man cannoning across the map.
Whatever weapon that you start off every round with is going to really affect the decisions you make.
There's this thing we didn't really identify in Halo 2, that if you spawn everybody with a dual-wieldable weapon like the SMG, it changed the game. People stop meleeing and people stop grenading because when you're dual-wielding, you can't do either of those.
One of our weapon modelers, Tom Doyle, said, hey, this is a great chance to bring back the assault rifle from Halo 1.
The assault rifle's design language really works well with the Master Chief. It has such a unique kind of silhouette and look to it that we really didn't want to change with what is already a Halo canon. But in terms of design and gameplay, it's been adjusted pretty considerably.
The weapon has a kind of a shallow clip, so it came down to how best do I use my melee attack, or how best do I use my grenades in order to tip that fight a little bit over in my favor.
The assault rifle works really well with the golden 3 things of Halo, which are weapons, grenades, and melee.
the different kind of weapons that you get to use now, the way that they're balanced against each other, the way the weapons are placed on a map. It brings a certain something to the map that just makes it play right.
You have a situation which is very common, two guys get into a fight. Is there a way to mix that up?
Say you start getting hit by a battle rifle from behind. Let's say you have a bubble shield, you drop it, all of a sudden you're completely shielded from this guy who was firing on you. Or you have a trip mine and you realize a warthog is barreling towards you. You deploy the trip mine at the last second. And yes, you die, but you take out those damn bastards that just ran you over.
When you are done as a group playing together, the first thing you want to do is talk about it.
Every game you play, you're going to be having a save film that you can stop time, shift camera angles. When you watch that.
Oh, look at that! This sucks!
I think being able to share it with your friends makes the smack talk even more powerful, because it's not just, oh, I just shot you in the head from across the map. It's, I just shot you in the head and let's watch it in slow-mo.
It's really going to help people improve their play if they can see it from the enemy's perspectives. You'll be able to watch where they go, what weapons they pick up, in what order.
We've done a lot of paper, we have all the specs, but there's a significant part of that that's not yet finished. The big challenge ahead of us now is to make sure that we get everything that we can in the game.
We're going to be what we're going to be, and we think it's really good, but everybody's expecting it to be really good, so we got to beat those expectations somehow. That's what's tough, yeah. That's what makes me cry at my desk.
Where did that grenade come from that killed me?
Did you see how that, like, I did that barrel roll and then hit two guys and it all blew up? And wow, that was awesome.
He just got sniped and then cartwheeled over the side and then got run over by a warthog.
We flipped 6 times in the air, landed it, and kept going.
So it's sort of fun that with save films, that single bullet that comes in that's actually going to kill you, that hits, then to actually watch blood start coming out and to see the guy get shot back, to watch that in slow motion and to see, look how cool that ragdoll is, look how cool this particle system is, look how cool that looks. It's just fantastic, and it's really fun to see.
People can't make things up now. They can't lie about what happened in the game last night. They can't exaggerate.
The save film essentially is an automatic replay of every game you play. Fly anywhere you want to in the map, pan around, check things out.
The amazing thing about save films is that you can actually relive any moment that happened at any time and look at it from any angle.
If you're not quite sure, how did they actually get the flag out of our base when we're supposedly had 3 guys guarding it? Now it's easy to go back, watch the film, see what they did.
The controls basically work exactly how you would expect them to.
It's so simple conceptually, but making it a reality, it took years.
Your first person, if you click the right stick, it shows you what that person was looking at from third person. The other option you have while you're following someone in third person is to break out into a orbiting cam. So anytime you hit the right stick, you automatically move out into this orbiting camera and you can zoom in and out.
I'll say it. I did not know that the Warthog actually had like an internal like dash lights and crap. And so then like I'm flying around and I'm like, wait, what? Like there's actually like lights in here?
There's 2 ways to rewind. You can either press left on the D-pad, which is a shortcut, or you can bring up the control pad, highlight the back button on the control pad, press A, and you'll rewind that way.
Every time that someone rewinds in a save film, I hold my breath because there's like, it's like God reaching in and being like, make magic happen, and then it magically just keeps working. Like, the complexity of that system is so insane.
Now the other cool thing is the ability to go into flying camera, and you do that by hitting the Y button, and that breaks you out into a free roaming camera.
You can watch it from above and you can see what you did, maybe get a perspective where you can actually see the impact of that grenade you threw and zoom in really closely on the action that happened after that.
So there's one group who was like, no, don't allow it. They're gonna see too many lies. It's a pain in the ass. The other side of it was like, look, flying cam is cool as shit. It actually is a big deal.
When you're in flying camera, if you hold in the left trigger, you can actually fly around the map faster. And then the right trigger is your speed control. If you hold down the right trigger in just a little, you'll notice it's slow motion. And if you hold it in all the way, it actually becomes fast forward.
I want people to be able to make those snippets, be able to make those moments and share them and be like, look at this awesome game, look at these crazy things I did, and that's so awesome. And I want that to be inside our engine, not to have to go to some external site.
Save Films and Forge, I think, represent the coolest features that we have in Halo 3.
We're giving them the tools to basically play Halo how they want to play it. They can set up any map however they see fit.
It's just crazy how much a map will change with just a small variation of either weapon placement or just where the flag spawns in CTF. If you don't like it there, move it 1 meter to the right.
If you want to in Forge, you could build your own base on the beach, maybe add some turrets for defense, add some crates to hide behind.
Try building a building out of fusion coils and then blow it up.
You could have 50 versions of Sandtrap that are each built differently, that each emphasize a different type of game style.
Forge is actually an old school Bungie name. It was the name of the map editor for the Marathon games. It's kind of a nod to the hardcore Bungie fans.
One of the guys on your team is this partially omnipotent little monitor flying around, dropping weapons for you and holding crates to block enemy fire, picking up your Scorpion and carrying you to the other side of the map.
It's like the hand of God that has come and picked up this large vehicle and started slinging it around right in front of this guy's face.
Your buddy can drop a bubble shield in front of you, now instantly you're protected. Maybe now you'd like to go on the offensive, ask your buddy to drop a Spartan laser for you. Next thing you know, you've got a laser in real time.
Once we realized we could do something like that, we're like,
this will be the mother of all multiplayer matches.
You can manipulate everything on the map. It's not just weapons and grenades and vehicles. It's spawning. It's where the flag sits. It's where the turret sits. It's every single object in the level.
They're gonna love the Forge because they can spend hours dropping tanks on each other.
Each item has a cost associated with it.
You have only so much Halo currency to spend on a particular map.
Yeah, I've joked that people are going to take our maps that are broken and within a week they're going to fix them because they're actually going to make the real version of like, hey, you know what, Bungie, your version of territories in this level sucked and here's the real one.
We're not really sure what people are going to do.
People are going to figure out new ways to use the Forge that I think we don't even understand or know are possible yet.
The next crazy thing that you're like, oh my god, they just took Forge and they took save films of that and they added voiceovers and they just did Macbeth. Holy crap, like that's crazy and that's awesome.
Everyone's riffing off each other's ideas and then all of a sudden some diamond just emerges from it where everyone needs to have this map.
Oh, this is so cool, I can't believe we're actually letting people do this.
This is the stuff that's going to keep people playing for years on end, that's going to make a billion hours get logged on Xbox Live. This is the thing that is going to really set our game apart from the rest, I think.
They let me pick. Did I ever tell you that? Choose whichever Spartan I wanted. But you had something they didn't. Something no one saw but me. Can you guess? Luck. They let me pick. Did I ever tell you that? Choose whichever Spartan I wanted. But you had something they didn't. Something no one saw but me. Can you guess? Luck.
It's come back home.
It's the return of Master Chief.
This is the end of our trilogy.
This is going to be the end of the story.
At the end of Halo 3, you won't just finish one fight, you'll finish all of the fights that you started in Halo 1.
This is a great story we're about to tell.
This is going to be the end of the fight.
At its heart, Halo is a mystery.
Cortana, all I need to know is, did we lose them?
I think we both know the answer to that.
There are struggles going on in Halo that are larger and longer than you can possibly imagine.
We made a blind jump. How did they?
Get here first? The Covenant ships have always been faster.
It's a story of a human conflict with an aggressive adversarial species, the Covenant.
Second tactical at Bolthead Charlie 14.
The Covenant is a collection of alien races that want to destroy humanity.
Man, we let those dumb bugs out to the middle of nowhere to keep them from getting their filthy claws on Earth. We're not gonna let them have it. What we will let them have is a belly full of lead and a pool of their own blood to drown in. Am I right, Marines? Sir, yes, sir. Damn right I am. Now move it out. Double time.
You play the Master Chief, who is sort of humanity's last secret weapon against this marauding alien horde.
Captain Keyes.
Good to see you, Master Chief. Things aren't going well. Cortana did her best, but we never really had a chance.
First Halo is about the Master Chief's struggle against the Covenant on a ring world that they all call Halo.
What is that thing, Lieutenant?
Hell if I know. We're landing on it.
The story of Halo 1 was really the story between you and your environment, this place that you were exploring.
According to the data in their networks, the ring has some kind of deep religious significance.
A big part of Halo is the relationship between Chief and Cortana.
Sleep well?
No thanks to your driving, yes.
So you did miss me.
Who is Cortana?
At least one of our writers refers to her as your girlfriend.
Cortana's every girlfriend that we've ever had.
You all right?
Never been better.
No, just kidding.
Cortana is A, naked, B, blue, and C, a hologram.
She's your little guardian angel.
Chief, I'm picking up movement. We need to go right now.
She's sort of the one character who is as powerful as you are.
Get Cortana off this ship. Keep her safe from the enemy. If they capture her, they'll learn everything.
I understand.
Captain Keyes puts Cortana on the chip and hands the chip over to you as the player.
Good luck, Master Chief.
The Master Chief picks up the chip, puts it right in his head. That became an important moment in the relationship between the Master Chief and Cortana.
That whole feeling of she's in your head. You have no choice but to listen to Cortana.
This is it. Halo's control center.
She's the one who's figuring out how to unlock the doors in front of you, and she's the one who's coming up with the plans and telling you what to do.
There's no time. Get out of here, find Keyes, stop him. Before it's too late!
But then that last 10% of the time, she doesn't know what to do. And then that's when you take over.
Even if I could get the countdown restarted, I don't know what to do.
How much firepower would you need to crack one of the engine shields?
As the story progresses, you learn that Earth is threatened not just by the Covenant, but also by a race of parasites called the Flood.
One of the most amazing video gaming moments ever is the introduction of the Flood.
Hold still! Hold still! Let them have it! Sergeant, we're surrounded. God damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapons! There are too many, Sergeant! Don't even think about it.
In Halo 1, they're the ultimate zombie that comes flying out of the closet.
It's a virulent strain of aliens that as it kills, it grows, and as it grows, it kills.
No human life signs detected. The captain, he's one of them.
Halo 1 does such a brilliant thing. This is what the world is about. All of a sudden you meet the Flood, and the world, you realize, is about something completely different.
We can't let the Flood get off this ring. You know what he'd expect. What he'd want us to do.
It's done. I have the code.
When the Flood comes out, I mean, the Covenant's just as much food as you are.
The Covenant's fighting the Flood, simultaneously fighting Earth, and you're fighting the Flood and the Covenant at the same time. It's like this crazy triangle of conflict.
The Halos were built to destroy the Flood.
The Forerunner built this place, what they called a fortress world.
The reason there's no more Forerunners is because they died fighting the Flood, and the Halos were like their last option.
The Flood is spreading. If we activate Halo's defenses, we can wipe them out.
Halo doesn't kill Flood, it kills their food. Humans, Covenant, whatever. We're all equally edible. The only way to stop the Flood is to starve them to death. And that's exactly what Halo is designed to do. Wipe the galaxy clean of all sentient life.
You're caught between a rock and a hard place. You can't kill the Flood without firing the rings, but you can't fire the rings without killing everybody else.
That's not going to happen.
Pretty much it's kind of a non-discriminatory weapon, you know, it's a hammer to kill a gnat, but you do something clever in the first game.
The Master Chief has managed to destroy the Halo itself so that it doesn't go off and kill everybody on Earth with it.
Which destroys the Flood infestation that's been unleashed and conveniently takes out your Covenant enemies at the time.
Halo, it's finished.
No, I think we're just getting started.
The opening scene of Halo 2 shows the Arbiter and his trial.
When you first saw Halo, were you blinded by its majesty?
No.
Yet the humans were able to land on the sacred ring and desecrate it with their filthy footsteps.
The Arbiter screwed up pretty royally in Halo 1 by allowing the Master Chief to destroy the ring.
Your inability to safeguard Halo was a colossal failure.
He's standing before the prophets, and he's facing them for the game that he lost to you.
The Prophet of Truth, this hasn't gone on long enough. Make an example of this bungler. The Council demands it.
The real enemy? Well, it's those three kind of creepy dudes that you can tell are kind of pulling the strings.
3 prophets at the top of the Covenant political chain: truth, regret, mercy. Truth is the man, and he is the last word when it comes to the Covenant.
You were right to focus your attention on the Flood. But this demon, this Master Chief...
The Covenant is united under one religious banner, which is the belief that this great journey is at hand.
Soon the great journey shall begin. The weight of your heresy will stay your feet, and you shall be left behind.
He's immediately made an example out of. He's ripped of all of his rank and armor, and he's tortured. He's branded as a failure. It's at that place where the prophets come to him and provide him with an opportunity to redeem himself.
Become the Arbiter, and you shall be set loose against this heresy with our blessing.
The story of the Arbiter works at all. It works on this very personal level. I was once great. I was shamed. My responsibilities have been taken away from me. I'm going to prove myself.
What would you have your Arbiter do?
And so he becomes an assassin for the prophets.
We renewed our faith in the prophecy that other rings would be found, and see how our faith has been rewarded.
Truth has built up this religion around the Forerunner rings, and it's a completely false religion. What he wants to do is light the rings because he thinks he's going to become a god.
Halo, salvation for all. And begin the great journey.
We don't know what the Great Journey is, but we know that it's probably something pretty bad. The Flood is unleashed in Halo 2, and you realize that the Flood actually has a central governing intelligence, which is this huge creature called the Gravemind.
What is that?
I am a monument to all your sins.
The Gravemind is there to convince you to not fire the rings for his own selfish reasons.
Those who built this place knew what they wrought.
Truth wants to light the rings. Gravemind doesn't want to light the rings, and you have to pick one.
Fate had us meet as foes, but this ring will make us brothers.
By the end of Halo 2, the Chief and the Arbiter have the same goal. They're both trying to stop Truth from firing the ring.
Kill the demon.
Tartarus, stop. The prophets have betrayed us. Take care, Arbiter. What you say is heresy, is it?
People you once thought were your enemies are now your allies.
You don't like me, and I sure as hell don't like you. But if we don't do something, Mr. Mohawk's gonna activate this ring. And we're all gonna die.
Tartarus has locked himself inside the control room.
Well, I just happen to have a key. Come on, grab a Banshee and give me some cover.
The Covenant is broken. The elites have rebelled, the brutes have replaced them.
The great journey has begun, and the brutes, not the elite, shall be the prophet's escort.
There's internal war.
Hold your fire! The hunters have come to our aid, Arbiter. They will fight by our side.
Truth thinks the moment of the great journey is about to happen. And the Chief is chasing him, trying to stop whatever this madman is doing.
That structure in the center of the city, it's a Forerunner ship, and Truth is heading straight for it. If he leads the Covenant fleet to Earth, they won't stand a chance. I'll detonate in Emberclad's reactor just like we did the Autumn's. No, I don't want to chance a remote detonation. I need to stay here.
The Chief is separated from Cortana for the first time since you first put her in your head in the beginning of Halo 1.
After I'm through with Truth.
Don't make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep it.
Leaving Cortana behind was the big emotional moment for the Master Chief in Halo 2. Cortana is in the clutches of the Gravemind, and the Flood is loose.
I will ask, and you will answer.
All right. Shoot.
Worst of all the Halos are primed to fire.
In the event of unexpected shutdown, all remaining platforms are now ready for remote activation.
A lot of disasters are looming.
Truth is in his Forerunner ship, and the Master Chief is stowed away in the back.
This is Spartan 117. Can anyone hear me?
Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
The Chief has a lot of problems at the beginning of Halo 3. The Flood is out, an unstoppable parasite that's capable of wiping out all life in the universe.
All of the Halos are primed and ready to fire.
Oh, and you left that woman that you care about? Yeah, you left her in the clutches of the Gravemind.
Chief, I can't trust you everywhere. It's not safe.
Cortana!
Nice job.
Cortana is giving us cryptic messages.
Could you sacrifice me to complete your mission? Could you watch me die?
Is she sending us a warning? We don't know what's happened to her since then.
You will be the protectors of Earth and all her colonies.
The Covenant has absolutely destroyed parts of Earth. Millions of people have died.
And the Prophet of Truth, the guy you didn't whack last time around, he's now in charge of this army of giant gorilla ape rhinos that's tearing through your stuff. You gotta shut him down too.
For your destruction is the will of the gods. And I am their instrument.
The elites and the brutes are having a civil war, destroying everything that the Prophet of Truth doesn't. And the keys to the Doomsday Machine are in the hands of a madman who thinks
it's some sort of religious gateway.
In a moment I will light the rings, and all who believe shall be saved.
Your job in Halo 3 is the absolute salvation of humankind and the rest of the galaxy. No more, no less.
Humanity is sort of down to its last defenses.
There's this overwhelming feeling of desperation.
This is either the best decision you've ever made or the worst.
All you can do is strap on your weapons and go to work.
Until we kill Truth, stop the rings from firing. Nothing else matters.
This is going to be hard. Even for a 7-foot-tall super soldier, this is going to be tough.
Tower 1 approach has active... Mayday! I can't control Hurricane down!
If we don't make it,
We'll make it.
Okay, here we go. So, Jen, are you ready?
Uh-huh.
This is 110 LB, a rescue Cortana.
Yeah, Jen, before you start, this is like the climax of the game. Obviously, you've been captured, and now Master Chief is rescuing you, so...
Okay. It's good to see you, Chief. I do know how to pick 'em.
Fans have been waiting 3 years for this moment where the Chief finally rescues Cortana, so...
Okay.
All the fanboys across the world are going to be waiting.
Fanboys?
You do know what I mean, right?
I had to admit, I didn't exactly.
The only way to stop the flood is to start...
I've been doing the voice of the AI character Cortana for 6 years now, from the Pillar of Autumn to the Portals of High Charity.
They'll make a girl a promise.
If you know you can't keep it. But the truth is, I'd never really gotten to know the fans we make the game for.
Claude Herrera.
Claude Herrera.
Where do I find him?
Within hours, I was on a plane heading east. My goal, to meet the fans I'd been hearing about. Why do they care so much? After 6 years and 3 games, it was time to find out.
Hi.
Hi, I'm looking for
I
Claude.
guess that would be me.
Fantastic. I'm Jen
Come on
from
in.
Bungie.
My search started in New York City. When it comes to Halo fans, Claude Herrera knows everyone. Modders and noobs. I'd heard about them all, but I'd never met them. I wasn't sure exactly what to expect, but I was about to get an introduction.
You have built a website that keeps everybody informed of what's going on.
There's a whole section on fan fiction, people writing stories based in the Halo universe. We have drawings people have done. There's a strategy guide that somebody's put together with all sorts of movies and tips.
So you're basically the conduit for the fans.
That's what I try to be.
That's awesome.
It's a bodysuit, and then she paints herself. There's a guy who painted his entire garage with Halo scenes. Just this week, somebody stopped by our forum to say they had met online playing Halo. They are now engaged, and they're going to have a Halo wedding. Somebody sent in a bunch of pictures of a real AR-5 they were building from Halo.
An AR-5, which
you know,
stands for?
Assault rifle.
Clearly, I had a lot to learn.
Andy the Killing Spree.
Are you going to take me out to this land party into the realm of dude?
Black Star died again.
These are the real fans, from the hardcore multiplayers to passionate campaigners.
You know who this is?
Yeah.
Hi!
We played last night until very, very late, and we started again this morning.
Is this normal? Is this how you...
This is what it's normally like.
I'm a virgin land goer. Do you see my mind being blown right now?
What makes a true Halo fan? Is it the ranking, the amount of forum postings, or the hours logged online? Miguel Chavez is one of the earliest Bungie fans. He's been bringing players together from around the world for years.
We've had gatherings here where people come from Sweden, from England, from Scotland.
The thing that you think is great about it is this kind of stuff.
Is this kind of stuff, yeah. The fact that you can be in the same room with someone, they can kill you, and instead of you just simply yelling at the TV, you can go right to them and elbow them.
This is overwhelming.
Yes, it is, it is.
It's the fans themselves that keeps me coming back all the time. It's the creations people come up with and the love that they show through their own creativity that makes me want to put up new posts every day.
According to Claude, there are more than 7 million fans out there. The game has even spawned 3 best-selling novels. I decided to start with the man who wrote the book, literally. the author of the Halo bestsellers, Eric Nyland. He also began as a fan himself.
I was working at Microsoft Games as a writer, and someone said, "Hey, Eric, you want to write for this new Halo game that's coming out soon?" I took a look at Halo, and it blew my mind, right? It was like the best video game ever. And so I said, yeah, sign me up for doing a Halo novel.
I also worked on Halo.
What did you do?
I'm a voice actor.
No way.
I voiced Cortana in Halo. Yes.
It's the stick it.
Bet
you can't stick it. Now I recognize your voice. Oh my God.
So my question to you, or what I'm interested in, is
You're famous.
So are you. How much are you influenced by what the fans want?
While we were writing the book, a lot of people were guessing, the latest one, what the plot would be, and eventually, most of them kind of pieced parts of it together. If you look in the forums, it was like someone had stolen my outline. They're this huge, collectively thinking organism. You know, if they ever got organized really well, I'd never have to write a novel. They'd just figure it all out.
Could they take over the world?
They probably could.
Some fans write about Halo. Some make their own art and movies. I had heard about machinima, fans who create videos using actual game footage. Each month, hundreds of new ones are posted online. There are even entire clans devoted to movie making. So I traveled down to Texas to meet some guys who had turned this into a full-time career.
Action.
The men of Rooster Teeth and their Halo comedy, Red vs. Blue.
Everybody loves Red vs. Blue.
Everybody loves Red vs.
Do you
Blue?
know that?
I think there's a couple animators out there that aren't too fond of Red vs. Blue. That's just my feeling. So.
Oh, really? Why?
Because we take their animations and do stupid stuff with them. Like, they spend hours making the Master Chief crouch in a realistic manner, and then we use it to make some obscene joke.
And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Good, work those hammies. How would you rate the humiliation factor?
Hi.
Another vital test of mission-critical technology.
Can we stop now?
Why Halo?
Because we were playing it about 17 hours a day.
I think we were looking at the Warthog and trying to figure out why they called it a Warthog. We were like, why are we in a video game and just staring at this Jeep? Why aren't we killing each other?
I mean, it's kind of like anything. I mean, filmmakers who make stuff, they just make whatever their world is. Our world at the time was Halo.
Can I be in Red vs. Blue?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Would you want to be in Red vs. Blue?
Yeah.
Might be a step down, don't you think? You know, I auditioned for Cortana. One more core to go.
Nice.
Nice, like that?
You want to have a smackdown? One more core to go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's rough. See, that's why she got the part.
Sam.
Son of a bitch.
I do have a certain knack for doing Cortana's voice. What I didn't realize is that I'd actually inspired fans to do their own creations. There have been hundreds of Halo-related songs posted, and as I was about to find out, some of them are even about my character.
Matt Cox!
Hey!
Hi!
Hi!
So you've written a song you've written many songs.
Mhm.
One of them in particular is Death of Cortana,
Death of Cortana.
which created a lot of buzz and got everybody really scared.
After reading the Eric Nyland books, and Cortana started to malfunction a little. It was like, wow, maybe they're kind of giving hints to what's going to happen with her. Kind of starts off a little slow,
Right.
kind of builds up to
To tragedy.
more
How
the
did she
media.
die, you think?
I think she's just so full of too much information and trying to process too much, she just eventually kind of implodes.
Okay.
Yeah. You have kind of a dialogue, you
Right.
know, with Cortana through the
It's in
entire
your
game.
head.
So you've spent hours, you know, listening to her. So
Right. And what does she sound like?
just like a normal girl that you would just kind of talk with and be friends with.
Someone you'd hang out with.
Yeah.
Someone who'd come over to your house and hang out with you. And what kind of things does Cortana say?
You sound like her.
Do I? Does she say things
I just
like,
why did
yank me?
It's
or...
ridiculous that I did not realize I was talking to Jen Taylor the entire time. All right, I'm fired. I am totally fired from Halo fandom of ever. So don't die.
I was
we don't
gonna
want
say,
to.
that's-
Was
I
it
was a little
freaking you out?
frightened.
Oh my gosh, how embarrassing. Red face.
Some fans, like Matt, enjoy Halo for the story. And some go pro. I wanted to meet the hardcore professional gamers, the money winners on MLG Pro Circuit. There's only been Halo tournaments since 2003, but some players were already earning $250,000 contracts. I'd heard about teams like Carbon and Final Boss. But when I found out about a clan of girl pros down in Texas led by twin sisters, I had to go.
Hi! We're doing a LAN party right now. Barbecue, we've got some games going on. Great
projector that's got gameplay.
Hot chicks who play Halo.
Yes. 500 girls worldwide, also known as Pandora's Mighty Soldiers or the PMS clan.
Oh, yeah? The original meaning of PMS? Psycho Menslayers.
You had me at Halo. That is our expression.
It is.
I wouldn't even be playing professionally or competitively if it wasn't for Halo. I used to be 60 hours a week in a suit in an office, so did she, and I quit it to do gaming full time. It's our passion.
Who are you?
Psychotic gamers. You can come play with us. It's because playing with a girl is a totally different experience.
Yes.
Can you say something? Give me a line.
I bet you can't stick it.
Oh, yeah, that one is awesome. That was like perfect. Yeah.
I killed you.
And you know what else I think Cortana would like? Where's the beer? We're not just all down home in Texas. We do have some wine if you'd like it. This ain't Princess Leia. She went for that pretty quick. This is Cortana. She's gonna drink the beer. Thanks for coming. And here's to Cortana.
Those chicks were awesome. I just wanted to hang out there all night, but I had a plane to catch. And a date with a quiet furniture maker who had become synonymous with his own Flash games based on Halo. Everyone had been mentioning his name.
Bowl.
Bowl.
Go visit Bowl.
Bowl? Hi, I'm looking for Andreas/Bowl. Have I found him?
Yeah, that's me.
School! You're still living at your parents' house.
Yeah.
Bowl is such an unassuming guy. He seems to think his games aren't worth much. But the fans talk about him and his simple but addictive games with reverence. Maybe that's because he's mastered the important questions like, how many grenades does it take to flip a warthog?
Warthog launch.
Yes, this is also inspired from the movie Warthog Jump by Randall Glass.
So you've created this little game too?
Yeah. Ooh, I stink at this.
You stink at your own game? You know who I am and you haven't said anything?
Of course.
When did you put it together?
Well, I've seen you in many photos.
I admire you and your Swedish ways. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
We're visiting, true fanatics about this game, Halo. They're all so different from each other. That's really what we're finding in this journey. They aren't just players. They're artists and game makers who give each other recognition online. Inspired by the game, they spend hours to bring the world of Halo to life, from the vehicles to the gear. I'd heard about one that could hook me up with some Mjolnir armor.
Hi. Are you Colin?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Colin. I'm Jen
Yes.
from Bungie.
I believe we've met before,
Have we
actually.
met before?
Very briefly at the Bungie Fan Fest at E3 2003. Do you remember the guy who was dressed up like one of the Halo Marines with a big assault rifle?
Was that you?
That was me.
It was the one event I'd ever attended. And who could forget that gear?
This is my father's studio.
This is where you've built your armor. This feels fantastic in my hands.
Like I said, this is just a prototype, so we've discarded this one. This was also a prototype, and we are actually currently in the process of rebuilding it. The Velcro secures here and here. This is our final version of the helmet.
I have made a transition from Cortana to Master Chief. Colin, I'm steaming up this helmet in here. I think I'm gonna pass out.
All right.
Colin?
This is my father.
Hi.
We
How
have
do you do?
built the armor together.
Nice to meet you. So what do you think of your son's obsession with Halo, and how lovely that you joined him in building this?
It's certainly worth doing, because he's worth doing it with. My best friend.
I love my dad.
Some fans are regular guys who build alien hardware. And some make alien worlds, like the folks at George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic. They're the effects wizards who've worked on films from Star Wars to Star Trek. But each day at lunch, they sneak off to play Halo. I wanted to find out why.
Are you kidding? I'm here in the halls of ILM, and you guys are playing Halo? You're having a LAN party here at work.
Yes.
Are you gonna get in trouble if anybody finds out?
Oh, it's okay. We're big fans of Halo, but it
boss
doesn't mean that
comes
we're
along.
not fans of like LucasArts games or anything. We're kind of addicted to the Halo.
Does your work give you an added appreciation for this game, do you think?
Absolutely. The idea that we concentrate on animation and performance, and that we bring that sensibility to the art of filmmaking, and then we watch Halo and we see the amount of detail that's been put into the art direction and the designs of like the spaceships and the characters. So it's kind of like playing within a movie, and we appreciate that.
I'm looking for the ultimate fan. Have I found the ultimate fan? Do you guys think?
You found the ultimate team.
Yes. The ultimate team. Now there's a heartwarming moment.
I'd met dozens of fans and logged thousands of miles. But in lots of ways, I'd only scratched the surface. I had time for one more stop.
I'm in Dublin.
Someone had told me the bare naked ladies were big Halo buffs, and I discovered they were on tour in Dublin, Ireland.
Hey. Hi, I'm looking for Ed from the Bare Naked
That's
Ladies.
me.
So can you translate Halo into Canadian for me?
Yes, absolutely. The thing that makes it difficult playing Halo in Canada is, of course, we have no handguns. So it's all melee weapons. The bonus is free healthcare. If your Master Chief goes down...
Thank you for joining us for the kickoff of our tour of Ireland.
I got contacted a while ago by some folks at a small upstart video game company called Microsoft. And they make a game called Halo.
What's your favorite line from the game?
Favorite line from the game?
Bet you can't stick it. That's a good one.
Rare is the game where the voice acting doesn't bother you.
Right,
sure. You know, it doesn't stick out and bother you. I guess what I like about Halo is that it doesn't get in the way. It doesn't bug you.
I'm going to put that on my resume. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because
Jen,
I'm the voice of Cortana.
I won't bug you. You're kidding! Wow. Well, you're really the voice of Cortana. Look how excited I just got.
Oh my God, you're that person! I was supposed to recognize her from her voice, but she plays a translucent 5-inch high video game character.
Oh, how I miss waking up to the sound of your voice.
What did I learn on my journey? Our voice is being heard by so many fans out there. More than 7 million of them. Artists, filmmakers, women warriors, and full-on Spartans. Some play Slayer, and some construct Zanzibar entirely out of blocks. But each builds a little piece of the game. Every time they play, they bring all that history with them. They do the work. I just voice the character. But each time I go out there, they're waiting. That's what they told me. And they wouldn't make a girl a promise they can't keep.
Waking up to the sound of your voice.
The story of Bungie begins deep in the Swedish countryside, in the tiny fishing village of Askersund, where the farmers would gather each...
Askersund? I'll put my boot in your Askersund. Now listen up. Bungie starts here. Sweet Home Chicago, 1991.
That year I was taking an artificial intelligence class, and Jason was in that class.
I was working on a game, and Alex was trying to start a company.
Where Jason is actually a lot like a shipboard AI, where most of the time it does miraculous work that nobody else could do, and then the other times it's, you know, crazy.
This is what I think of the Computer Game Developers Conference.
You know, we just got to talking and thought maybe we should try partnering up.
And I finished that first game for the company that became Bungie.
Two guys come up with a manifesto. 7 steps to world domination.
They were handed down from on high. They came from Providence.
7 steps to world domination.
Because that's the best number. It's like rock. Nothing beats rock or 7.
7 steps? I've only been here 6 years. They don't trust you overnight.
If I could just run more than 7 steps, I think we'll start there, and then we'll see where we go.
Yeah, start independent gaming company. Is there an addendum that says remain independent? Because we should have put that in there.
Bungie Studios started properly in 1991.
We tried it out, and it worked really good. We just kept going.
Every time you eat a piece of pizza, you have to cross something off, right?
But it was kind of like, you know, being in a band, because it was our lives, you know, 24/7.
We didn't have any idea what we were really doing.
I think Tunster needs to get the shaft.
There are a variety of ways one can get the shaft. Getting rid of the shaft, that's a trickier proposition.
Every 2 weeks, someone's gonna get the shaft. So, Harold, you are the proud owner of the shaft for the next 2 weeks.
Well, the name Bungie is actually a very dirty, dirty joke. Well, it's a punchline of a very dirty joke, which I'm afraid I can't reveal.
You know, I can't talk about why the company's called Bungie.
That's top secret stuff.
The original Bungie offices But you can see across the street, brown brick building there. We occupied the second floor. It had character. This is where we would eat our burritos, probably 4 out of 5 days of the week. This building used to be the bug stop. It was like open 24 hours or something.
And there was that crack house behind the building.
Some guys come running up to the car side door and we're like, what the hell's going on here? And he holds up this trash bag and he's like, come on, buy some porn, buy some porn. And we're like, no thanks. That was sort of the ambiance of the neighborhood in the old place. It was awesome.
So let's just say that step 2 is immensely destructive.
Bungie grew up making games for the Mac.
Hello.
I think I had pretty modest ambitions at the time and didn't come close to achieving them the first time out of the gate or the second time. But we stuck with it.
And we ended up with Pathways.
I had some friends that used to play Pathways in the darkness all the time.
Which was our first, I would say, successful game, that made a profit. And we were able to start hiring some people to help us out.
First Bungie game I ever heard of was Marathon.
Let's just say that it's a grand galactic space opera with mystical overtones.
That was the first-person shooter on the Macintosh where you could connect with other friends and actually play head-to-head. Whoa, you guys!
So how close is Marathon at this point?
Well, we shipped by August Macworld 97. We'll all be really happy.
Yeah, Marathon was our breakout project, really. A lot of people really liked the game.
Marathon made me dizzy.
I think at that time, honestly, Mac owners would have been excited by Space Invaders in a tube.
One of the first games I ever played where I really got a sense of a community around an actual game was Myth.
We developed it for the Mac and the PC at the same time.
Myth is a real-time strategy.
But it's much more like an arcade game.
You use the terrain to your advantage, which isn't something that a whole lot of games did at the time.
It was all about the quick combat and micromanagement of troops. It was a lot of fun.
The ability to play multiplayer against strangers and friends has been a foundation for other things that we've gone on to do really well.
The game Phoenix was what we worked on after Myth 2. It was called Phoenix because that's what kind of rose out of the ashes of the Myth 2 project.
It was still in that same sort of medieval kind of magical time frame.
We worked on a number of different giant medieval style weapons like big catapults and trebuchets.
Lots of magic, lots of swordplay.
You went around as a big minotaur with an axe and beat the crap out of skeletons.
There were a bunch of very fun components to it, but Phoenix never really caught fire. You would play with it and you would go, well, this is like maybe 5 minutes of fun, and after that it's just not fun anymore. So you would scrap that and then you would just move on to the next thing.
Without further ado, let me go back to Peter, who has managed to rustle up a fan, who I hear has a pretty stupid trick for us.
We got into the world of television with Bungie TV, largely thanks to the ego and ability of Joseph Staten.
Oh, he's got a leg in. He's down. He's in.
Oh!
Jeff is in. Jeff is in the can. That was back in the day before the internet's tubes were big enough to shove all the things through. So, we've been putting together a tour of the ONI facilities.
Here we have the Bungie West parking lot, the central portion of the Bungie offices. This looks like a paperwork disaster. The entertainment area, which is a little messy.
The West Coast office of Bungie started with ONI, which was a third-person shooter.
We called it full contact action.
The Matrix had just come out, and that was really sort of a big influence on the animation.
The main character for Oni is Kanoko. She is strong but vulnerable. Just something to pique that sense of chivalry that is like really undeveloped in the hearts of young men.
Step 3, you cut a hole in a box. Some people think that's step 1, but to me it's step 3.
Yeah, nothing says killer, hardcore, rough and tumble like Halo.
Paul Russell is the father of Halo.
I came up with the name Halo, and it was not received well. Jason was leaning more towards Redshift. Covenant was one of them. I thought it sounded like a bad 80s hair band. You know, Covenant.
Halo is an epic journey to save humanity from a terrible menace. That's all it is. That's good. They should put that on the box.
It was going to be really important to Microsoft to have games for the Xbox. That's what was going to make or break it. We got very excited about the opportunity to be a launch game on a platform.
I remember seeing just a single texture on a wall with a flashlight going, wow, this is gonna be awesome. And it was way before the Xbox even looked like the Xbox and way before Halo even looked like Halo.
That's the first version of the Warthog, I guess, huh? Yeah. Man, this isn't Halo, dude. Man, this is really, really old.
We had a huge map for a continuous RPG game, and for that we had an RTS.
And then next thing you know, it was a third person, and we were playing it in our office.
People probably want to know why we switched from third person to first person. Jason again.
Yeah, it's damn Jason, man.
That's what happens when your lead is a crack addict.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, Halo depended on a lot of that early wandering.
And we never really knew how people were going to receive it. Like 6 months before we shipped, we went to E3 with a build of the game, and nobody liked it. You know, people played it, and they're like, the frame rate's not so good. Well, what's all this hype, Halo?
Good luck, Master Chief.
Evolving over a long period of time, Halo's turned into something much bigger than a video game.
Because we're creating a world. You can't open, history books and whatnot to read about Halo. This is a world that's been created.
And this progress attracted the attention of someone who, in many respects, was all that we aspired to be. Did we let this attention go to our heads? No, we did not. And little did we know it, but Bungie was on the auction block, and we all of us soon found ourselves strangers in a strange land.
When Microsoft bought us, some people were totally incensed because they grew up from the Mac side of things and felt like, this was a sellout.
Greed, pure and simple, cashed it in, sold our souls.
A lot of the team was pretty young and didn't have a lot of attachments, so the opportunity to go somewhere new was pretty exciting. I think for some of us, myself included, with family in Chicago, it was maybe a little bit more bittersweet.
We got on a plane, we came out here, and we really looked back,
We were expecting a final sales number to be 700,000 units, and then it just went through the roof.
Why? Because of my pretty face. Hoorah!
Step 4 didn't really go very well.
Which one was step 4?
Which one's step 4?
Do you know what step 4 is?
Right, we gotta get a picture of the Bungie food.
I know back in the day in Chicago, there was a very infamous Chinese food restaurant we used to order from.
They used to just deliver us crazy amounts of Chinese food all the time.
What's this crap? That looks good.
Ming Choi is the one place that you can get roasted chicken, pizza, and barbecued pork fried rice, all delivered within 20 minutes.
I don't think that really accelerated the process development so much as it sort of filled it with a lot of bathroom breaks.
Because Halo 1 happened really big, I don't think there's any doubt that there wasn't going to be a Halo 2.
We're like, we should do another one, because we're out of margaritas and, they're expensive. We're gonna need more.
Halo 2 is moving. Time begins to crawl. But we're still not telling if we'll ship this fall. Maybe Bungie needs to see Robbie give a piece to me. A piece to me.
Bet you can't stick it.
You're on.
Halo 2 led us to step 5 of our plan for world domination.
We were supposed to get the orbital defense station. That was step 5.
I forget step 5.
But Microsoft said that if they're going to build an orbital space station, that it's going to be running Windows, and we didn't want to be going up there.
Oh, it's been recovered. We're trying to move on to giving it away.
Ling Ling is a severed dog's head in a jar.
One of the guys from the Chicago office had a roommate who was a medical student, and he brought Ling Ling home as homework. He moved out and left Ling Ling behind, and she's been here ever since.
Of all the Chicago traditions we should have left behind.
The last thing you want to see when you pop open your closet is a severed dog's head.
Other people just run away or barf. But Ling Ling's head, if you have faith, it's going to help us dominate.
You want to dominate? Try this puppy.
There were a lot of reasons that it was important for us to move to another building. One is that Bungie is all about having its own identity.
It was because of the parking, man. I mean, now they have valets, so maybe that would have changed things.
A lot of people just felt like we were just part of the Borg.
There's definitely a great deal of love between Bungie and Microsoft. And when Microsoft hits us, it's because it loves us.
They made us walk like 200 yards to the bathroom.
Being in this sort of stale cube farm type environment isn't very conducive to being creative.
Like Matt Noguchi would sprint all the way to the bathroom and just barely make it. I mean, barely. Like, that's why there's this big puddle of piss in front of the urinals.
I think the main reason we moved is we just got bigger. I don't know, forget how many people we had on Halo 1, maybe 40-ish, and apparently we've got 200 people in the building now. I mean, we're huge.
The new place is a lot more like, I think when my dad came to visit, he was like, oh my God, this place looks like the set of 24 or something.
It's like a fortress of solitude right next to a Starbucks.
Well, it is a little dark. A cave is a good description for it. The interior is like a big, giant, open pit.
We like the big open office environment because we think that communication is very important.
This is the Bungie coat of arms. Basically, the Latin says, don't make us kick your ass.
All I gotta say is we're on Halo 3 right now. That's all.
Halo 3 has been pretty much freaking awesome from the beginning.
Crazy fool. Why do you always jump?
This is humanity's final stand. Here, at Earth.
Halo has a life of its own, and it lives and breathes and consumes everything in its path.
Step 7 had something to do with getting more women to work at the company, but that's not going so high.
I'm actively working on number 7 every day, and laying out my schemes, my plans.
You're either an ally or an enemy, so you must choose a side.
Because when you get to 7, someone's got to do it.
On that final day, when our enemies find themselves all standing together on a giant cargo net, on a highly sprung giant mechanism waiting to be hurled into the sun, they will look to themselves and say, this agenda has been posted publicly on Bungie Net for 7 years, and we paid no attention. If only we'd looked.
10 years into the future, it's hard to imagine.
Wow, 10 years in the future.
Where's this whole thing going?
Not making Halo games.
After Halo 3 ships, it's going to be an interesting time for us.
My fear is that we make the greatest game in the world and nobody buys it.
It's all about where's the candy and where's the death. I want the candy. I don't want the death. So I think in 10 years, games are going to be a lot more fun.
I'm trying to recreate some of that wandering we did at the beginning of Halo 1 and we did at the beginning of Pathways.
Keeping everyone super motivated, hoping that we're going to create something beautiful.
Hopefully Chucky won't be clipping his toenails in the middle of
the meeting room.
10 years in the future, I just want to be making games.
Ha! Talk to me after the next trilogy. I'm gonna be in there, right?